My 26 female, boyfriend 25 male, made plans on our first date anniversary. Firstly, I want to make it clear that this kind of resulted as a mistake on both ends. So my 26 female, boyfriend 25 male, made plans with his friends this week on our first date anniversary. This would be the first time celebrating any anniversary between us, and we had spoken about it for a while. We both kept getting muddled up on the days as we've both been extremely busy at work, though we knew throughout this month that it was coming. Before I realized the specific day of our anniversary landed on, he had told me about his plans since he wouldn't be able to see me that day. Our work schedules don't often align, so he always runs it by me if he has plans on a day that he's off, in case one of us is expecting to meet after work, and vice versa. Since I didn't put it together that his plans coincided with our anniversary, I told him that it was alright and was really enthusiastic about him going. The problem is that today the penny dropped and I realized that we made a mistake. I know it sounds silly, but I feel really upset about this. It's our first anniversary, and it just feels like such a shame to miss it. There is also a part of me that is slightly upset that he even made plans on that day, which I know is irrational and hypocritical, seeing as I got muddled up too. But I guess it's just me wishing that he had realized or kept it in mind, even if I wasn't aware. I know that's not fair, but I'm just being honest. I don't know whether this is something that I should or could bring up to him. I feel like I definitely can't ask him to cancel his plans, seeing as I already said that I don't mind, and he already committed to his friends. I did tell him today that our anniversary is on that specific day, but he didn't say anything about us not being together to celebrate. I'm not gonna lie, a part of me was hoping that he'd offer to cancel. I'm considering asking my work if I can take the day off, since it's his day off too, that maybe we can do something before or after his plans. But in the past, he's been very against seeing me when he's already made plans. I'm not sure if there's even advice anyone could give me. I know we could celebrate on another day and that we will have more anniversaries in the future, but it just feels very sad that we messed this first one up. Should I tell him how upset I am, or would that just be unnecessary guilt? In the comments, Amaranthesk says, I think you're right to not ask him to change his plans or try to pile more plans on top of a day when he's already busy. Just let him know that you'd like to plan something special on another day soon, and then you can both enjoy doing something together on another day without looking at the clock to see when he has to rush off to his other thing. That said, it's fine to be honest about the fact that you're feeling a little sad that you both mixed up the dates here, as long as you recognize that doesn't mean that either of you has to do anything about that, other than make your backup plan for another day. OP says, you're right. I think a part of me thought maybe doing something on the same day would be a good fix, but it's true that it would just put pressure and time constraints on everything, and it's not necessary to do anything about it like you said. I'm just going to leave it and make sure that we plan to celebrate another day. Just make plans with BF for another day. The celebration of the relationship is important, not when the celebration occurs. I've been married for a lot of years. When we were young, we both worked rotating shifts and our days off rarely aligned. It didn't matter whether we celebrated on the exact day of an anniversary or Valentine's, or pick any other holiday. And OP says, that's a very good point and really helps to hear. I'm definitely placing a lot of importance on the actual day, but you're right that it's the celebration that's important overall. I guess I just needed some perspective. And I think that my advice on this one would be the same. I feel like you're just freaking out over nothing. And it doesn't seem like you're coming from the perspective of a 26-year-old here, OP. I would know because I'm 26. I personally wouldn't be freaking out being like, oh my god, we missed the first day. This is the end of my life. Maybe if I was 16 years old, I'd have this kind of freak out, so I find it just a bit odd. Like, yes, we absolutely all make mistakes, but I don't understand why you're so freaked out about this one. Absolutely your feelings are valid, but yeah, this is kind of a non-issue. And, you should tell him. You should absolutely be transparent with your emotions. You should express that you made a mistake, potentially he made a mistake too by forgetting, and then you make up and move on. That's just life. Our next update is titled, My boyfriend's friend expressed his feelings for him. Should I tell him this makes me uncomfortable? So my boyfriend has a friend. Let's call him Dave, who has expressed his feelings for him. This is going to be a really long post, so sorry in advance. To give some background, Dave is a work colleague and they've been friends for a while. Dave is openly gay and we've met several times. I never had any problems with him. We seem to get along quite well. This all started a few months ago. Dave and my boyfriend live on the same road, and after a night out with his work colleagues, they were dropped off together at Dave's house, when my boyfriend planned to walk home. That night, I had been messaging my boyfriend before bed, and at around 3 a.m., he had messaged me that he was on his way home. I was asleep by then. The next morning, I woke up to see the 3 a.m. message, and saw that just after 5 a.m., he messaged me to say that he was home. I found this a little bit odd, since the place he was going home from was about 30 minutes away, though I thought maybe he just forgot to reply. When he woke up, I asked him about his night and how late he got home. He told me that the whole work crew were being dropped off in the same Uber, so it took him about an hour to get back. But this confused me even more, because that wouldn't explain the 5 a.m. message. I asked if he ended up doing afters at Dave's house, but he said no and just left it at that. He didn't even say that he forgot to message or anything to explain the missing hour. I found it a bit strange, but left it alone, even though his responses were a little out of character and I could tell that he wasn't telling me something. The next date night that we had, he finally let it slip that he wasn't telling me everything about that night. He told me that while he was walking home, Dave, who had already gone home since the Uber dropped them at his house, suddenly started running after him. He told me that Dave told him that he's had strong feelings for him for who knows how long, and that he was interested in starting something with him. My boyfriend said he was really in shock, and that he reminded him that he was straight and has a girlfriend who he's met. Dave asked if any part of him would be interested in trying anything, and my boyfriend said no. I wasn't extremely annoyed by this story, other than being a bit bothered that he tried to proposition him that night, but I asked him why he wouldn't just tell me that this happened, rather than keeping it a secret for a few days. He said he thought that I might get upset, and when I asked him why I would be, he ended up adding more to the story. Apparently, while Dave was making this declaration of love, he was also taking the opportunity to badmouth me. Dave doesn't know me extremely well, but like I said before, our interactions at that point had been pleasant. He was telling my boyfriend that I don't deserve him and he could do much better than me, amongst other things. This, of course, did upset me, and I felt extremely disrespected. Not only did he try to convince my boyfriend to cheat on me, but the stuff that he was saying was also extremely insulting. Dave and my boyfriend ended up having an hour-long conversation in the rain. He jokingly referred to it as the most romantic thing anyone has ever done for him, but I don't really know how much my boyfriend defended me or made it clear that this type of dialogue isn't okay with him. He definitely shut it down though. Since then, I've felt very uncomfortable with my boyfriend and Dave's friendship. I don't want to be the type of girlfriend that has a problem with any of her boyfriend's friends, but I really felt like Dave had crossed a line. Still, they are constantly together because they work with each other, and my boyfriend spends a lot of time with his work colleagues on days off, etc. The problem is that, as time goes on, it's getting to me more and more. Yesterday, I posted about my boyfriend having made plans with his friends, the work colleagues, on our anniversary. Basically, they're planning to play Dungeons & Dragons, and Dave went over to my boyfriend's place yesterday at 6:30 p.m. to create his character, since my boyfriend has never played before. My boyfriend had made it seem like there was a group who were going to help him make his character, but it turned out to just be Dave. I only realized this because we're on FaceTime, and Dave rang the bell while we were on call. Because he had abruptly hung up the phone on me, he told me he would call me back later on when Dave had left, and made it seem like he wouldn't be long. Well, it gets to midnight, and my boyfriend still didn't call. I messaged to ask whether he was free yet, and he said that Dave's still there, and they're having some drinks. Because I had work, I just ended up going to bed and said that we would call tomorrow, which is now today. Today we called, and my boyfriend told me that he is extremely hungover and that Dave stayed until about 4 a.m. last night. I asked him what the hell happened since it wasn't meant to be a big night, and he said that they were initially drinking beers, but then moved to margaritas and lost track of time. I asked them what they were doing all that time, literally 9.5 hours. and he said that it took them about 3 hours to make his D&D character, and then after that, Dave asked him to teach him how to DJ. My boyfriend makes music and DJs. I didn't say anything further than just asking him what happened last night, and he'll be seeing Dave again tonight for the D&D thing. This entire situation has seriously bothered me. Call me insecure, but I am not comfortable with my boyfriend spending one-on-one alone time all night with anyone who has expressed deep feelings for him, let alone someone who completely disrespected me in order to try and convince my boyfriend to get with him. I know that my boyfriend isn't gay, but to me I just feel the same as I would feel had it been a girl who was interested in him. Even if nothing is going to happen, it feels like he's entertaining someone's interest. Particularly someone who clearly doesn't respect our relationship. Should I speak to my boyfriend about this? What would I even say? I'm just getting the vibes of last night we let the liquor talk. In the comments, David Hiking in Alaska says, if you and your boyfriend surrounded yourself with high drama people, you're going to get drama. Most friends don't stir the pot by dissing our partners like Dave is doing, and an emotionally intelligent boyfriend would 1. Shut that down rather than let Dave prattle on, and 2. Not tell you about it because it's only going to, and clearly has, sandpapered your insecurities. It seems like your boyfriend likes the attention he's getting from Dave, whether he's straight or not. And I'd argue you can't know that my boyfriend is not gay or bi, since I know a number of people who married their spouses only to have that come out years or decades later. Hanging out with a gay guy who is hitting on him versus, being at home having sex with his girlfriend is a weird preference for a completely straight guy. Did the boyfriend get raised in a fundy religious, LDS, Catholic Islam that would preclude him from believing that he could be happy, moral, and respected if with a guy? The closet is powerful. Such discussions of sexuality lead nowhere until the person is ready to talk about it, if ever. So I'd suggest talking only about the drama. Dave is more drama than you want brought back to your relationship, and while an occasional night out with the boys is fine, you want your boyfriend to prioritize time with you over time with a gay guy hitting on him while also dissing you. Note that setting boundaries is not putting limits on other people. Something like, I don't want to see Dave alone, but is defining limits to what you'll do in that situation. The next time you're out till 3 a.m., you are not allowed to come to my place for the next week, or whatever response you think is warranted. You can't control someone else's behavior, but you can respond as you like to what they have done. OP says, I appreciate the advice. I agree that I can't say for 100% certain that he's not gay. I'm just going off of trust at the moment. But this whole scenario doesn't make it easy considering, like you said, people can come out at any point in life. I wouldn't say he grew up in an overly religious household. His mum is Protestant and baptized him, but he refused to be confirmed and doesn't engage in any religious practices. His dad and siblings aren't religious either, and he has a gay uncle. So it doesn't seem like it would be a huge issue in the family, but of course religion may not always be the reason to stay in the closet. I've seen some consensus that he may like the attention, which I honestly hadn't thought of at all. I could really see this as being the case just based off of his personality. He may think it's harmless, but it really has brought up an insecurity. I think I'll approach it as being more about the drama than anything about his sexuality, as I don't think that would go down well at all. The fact that he hid it from you in the first place is a red flag to me. I'd be as concerned as you. Firstly, what kind of shitty friend badmouths his friend's girlfriend while he simultaneously admits his affection for them? If a friend of mine had said that to me, that they liked me in more than just a friendship way, I would distance myself until either they got over their feelings or to a point that we no longer talked. The fact that your boyfriend has done none of this, especially after badmouthing you, but the reverse, is alarming to say the least. Are you sure that your boyfriend isn't exploring his feelings for his friend? 1. Keeping most of this from you. 2. Romanticizing about it, rather than focusing on the negative badmouthing, most romantic thing anyone has ever done for him. And 3. Inviting him over to drink after all that. I can't remember everything we said, but we said it all. All of those signs to me say that he doesn't care about you and is either happy ignoring what happened or is exploring his feelings for his friend, and that he doesn't respect you by not even cutting his friendship off, even if it were temporary. I would personally sit him down to talk about it, and if he thinks that it's acceptable in any way, I would ghost him. OP says, the fact that he didn't tell me was a big thing that played on my mind for a while, and I also felt like it was a red flag. For now, I'm trusting that he's not exploring his sexuality while we're in a relationship, and that he's not lying to me about anything. But of course, I'll never be 100% sure. I do want to note that he and I have access to each other's phones and Find My iPhone, so I think that if there were anything to hide in terms of sexuality, he definitely wouldn't have done that. This was after everything with Dave as well. I do think that what you said about him perhaps romanticizing the incident could be spot on. He's probably not thought about or is ignoring how much it hurt my feelings. I also felt like he should have kept a greater distance after everything. Maybe I've been too passive about my feelings towards it, so I think I'll speak to him about how I feel. Chuck Greenwald says, no one said it yet, so I'm just gonna float it. It sounds like your boyfriend doesn't know how to shut Dave down. He might be afraid of seeming homophobic or being accused of that by Dave for rejecting his feelings. You might think that that's weird, but there's tons of people out there who interpret rejection of their feelings as rejection of their identity and get extremely vicious in response. Plenty of people have had their lives ruined by someone accusing them of bigotry for not giving in to their feelings. Dave sounds super catty, so if your boyfriend said that he was scared of him starting something, I'd believe it. Just a theory though. You're right to feel disrespected and wanting it to stop. I just think that your boyfriend might be in a tough spot here, especially if he has any anxiety or people-pleasing tendencies. And OP replies, this has blown my mind. It seriously never occurred to me, but my boyfriend is 100% a people-pleaser. I understand what you're saying about Dave potentially getting nasty if he felt rejected for his sexuality and identity, and I could see it as a possibility. Dave has also recently been promoted to my boyfriend's supervisor at work, though this wasn't the case when he admitted his feelings, so maybe that could also be a factor. I'm not sure, but what you've said is definitely something to think about. I don't know about you guys in this situation, but I'm definitely on board with the fact that OP's boyfriend and Dave have something going on, and OP's boyfriend just cannot say no. He's gotta ignore his girlfriend for 9.5 hours in a row because I can't step out of the room to have a conversation with you on the phone. I'd be pissing Dave off. I'd be upsetting Dave, you know? Everyone loves Dave. You know what? He talked mad shit about my girlfriend to my face, and I just nodded that one off. That was just A-okay with me. That's a very normal thing to do. Someone pours their heart out in front of you, says that you deserve better than your nasty girlfriend, that your girlfriend is trash. He's so normal and well-adjusted for just agreeing with that, and then staying up all night with him and getting drunk and saying that that was the most romantic thing ever. These are definitely the words and actions of someone that is well-adjusted, I think. I just have to know, how is he 25 years old and still has yet to grow a spine? What has happened for him to come to this position? I think if I was in OP's shoes in this situation, I'd scream at him. I would absolutely scream at him for not standing up for me. And now, onto the final update. Before I get into the update, I just want to say thank you to everyone who shared their advice. My boyfriend and I had a long talk last night, and a lot of you helped me actually verbalize my feelings towards this situation. So my boyfriend called me immediately after he got home from the Dungeons & Dragons game, and I just got straight into it with him. By the time he got home, I was already stewing after reading everyone's perspectives on the situation, and I think I shocked him with how forceful I was from the get-go. We've not really had arguments like that before. I started by saying that I'm uncomfortable with the fact that Dave stayed over until 4 a.m., one-on-one with him, and that they got wasted. He seemed surprised and completely oblivious that it would bother me to this level, and he asked me to explain why I was feeling this way. I told him it's totally unacceptable that he and Dave spent basically the whole night together when Dave has actively tried to sleep with him and disrespected me and our relationship in the process. I told him that he needs to have boundaries with Dave, given all that has happened. His response to this was that Dave said these things a couple of months ago, and that he doesn't think that Dave still fancies him like that, or ever really did. He basically said that Dave was super drunk when he made his admission, but it wasn't that serious, especially since he's not gay or curious, and doesn't reciprocate Dave's feelings at all. I told him whether he took it seriously or not, the whole situation was serious to me, and that I feel extremely disrespected by both of them. I told him if this was a girl who admitted her feelings for him, and they stayed up together one-on-one until 4 a.m., I would immediately think something sketchy is going on, because you don't entertain someone like that when you're in a relationship. Just because Dave is a boy, that doesn't make it okay, and he should still have the same boundaries that he would for a girl who says that she's into him, propositions him, and talks shit about me. He didn't really agree with this argument because he said that it's different. In that scenario, there is a chance of attraction and sexual activity, but with Dave, there isn't. I told him that in any situation with anyone there's a chance. Yeah, put me in a room with oiled up Hulk Hogan, you're not going to want to see what happens. Regardless if he considers himself straight, how am I meant to trust that things wouldn't happen when Dave has already expressed his desire to have sex with him, and they were very drunk and alone together? In what world would I be comfortable with the fact that he has chosen to spend one-on-one time with Dave until the early hours of the night, knowing Dave has contempt for me and our relationship? At the bare minimum, he is showing Dave that it's okay to disrespect me and us, and that Dave still has his attention after all this, potentially leading Dave on since he has a sexual attraction towards my boyfriend. He told me that he understands my point of view, but it wasn't like that, and he didn't plan to have Dave stay that late anyway. I asked him to take me through the entire night and explain to me why they would need to hang out for almost 10 hours. He said that when Dave came over, they worked on his D&D character, and Dave explained how to play for about 3 hours, and they were having a couple of beers until Dave asked for something else to drink. Then they FaceTimed another co-worker who was hosting the D&D event and stayed on call for like 2 hours or more. Apparently it went from D&D conversation to gossip about work, etc. He said after that, he was showing Dave the music he's made and how to produce and DJ, and they just lost track of time. I asked him how he could lose track of so much time when I was messaging him at 11 p.m/midnight to say goodnight. He knew what time it was at that point, so why wasn't Dave on his way out by then? I told him the whole thing was super sketchy, which he took slight offense to, asking me what I'm trying to insinuate and saying it seems like I don't trust him. He said that in terms of lateness, he honestly doesn't know how that happened, and that he was shocked when he checked the time, and then asked Dave to leave as soon as he realized. He said he didn't ever think the situation was suspicious, and that from his perspective, Dave doesn't have feelings for him, so the whole night was innocent, / they were back to being the same friends as they were before Dave's admission. I told him that it can never go back, even if he thinks that Dave doesn't have ulterior motives. Dave put this out there, and that can't be taken back. His behavior needs to change, and boundaries need to be put in place. I told him that, without putting boundaries, he is essentially keeping things open from Dave's perspective. He told me that initially, when this entire situation happened, he distanced himself from Dave, except for when at work / work events and group outings, which is a lot of the time, so I'm not sure how distant that is. Nevertheless, he said they haven't met up one-on-one together for like 2 months. I'm pretty sure they have, but I will concede that he hasn't told me they've been alone at each other's houses since the admission. More so just the pub, if anything. But I could be wrong. He may just have not mentioned another person joining them. I couldn't remember the specific occasions where I thought they did though, so I couldn't really challenge him on that one. Anyways, he said their friendship was different because he felt awkward, which he didn't make clear to me at all. He always seemed like it didn't faze him at all, and it appeared to me that nothing had changed between them. He told me that they ended up having a chat a few weeks ago where Dave apologized for what he did and told him that he just didn't mean anything he said. He also said that because it happened a few months ago, he's just moved on from it now and decided to forgive and forget. I told him while he can forgive, he can't forget, because this has happened now, and their friendship has to be different going forward for the sake of his partner and relationship. I also asked him why he never told me about this talk, and he said he didn't think that any of this was a big issue for me, so it didn't occur to him that this would be something that I would want to know. This led to us arguing about the fact that he doesn't share information with me, tells white lies, and omits things, including when the Dave thing initially happened. I said that I always tell him immediately if anyone makes a pass at me, and even used an example of a friend, let's call him Bill, who had touched me in a sexual way on a night out and said to my best friend that he has feelings for me. When that happened, I literally called my boyfriend the same night while he was on holiday, as I knew that I would be seeing Bill for 2 upcoming group events, including New Year's Eve, both of which I invited my boyfriend to. He tried to deflect by saying that he didn't know Bill had verbally said that he had feelings for me, and that I only said that I think Bill has a crush on me, insinuating that it's the same situation as him and Dave, which I thought was ridiculous, and told him that he's just trying to find a loophole for his own behavior. I asked him if he would be okay with Bill and I spending all night together getting drunk. He said obviously not. But, again, he thinks it's different, especially since the Bill thing happened more recently. I told him then by his logic, that means it'll be okay for me to do that as long as I wait a couple of weeks/months. We continued going back and forth a bit. He apologized for making me feel upset and uncomfortable and said that it was never his intention. He just truly thought the whole thing with Dave was behind them. He also apologized if he came off defensive. He said maybe he's been naive, but he really did not believe that Dave still had any feelings for him or ulterior motives in spending time with him. He also said that it's become more difficult for him now that Dave is his supervisor because he essentially controls all his shifts, holidays, etc., and that if he alienates him, it might impact all of that. He asked me if I want him to cut off Dave for good, because he's not sure how he can do that given his work situation, and the fact that they often do group gatherings and events. He said it's kind of sad, because Dave had been a good friend to him, and they get along. I told him that if Dave was a good friend, he wouldn't have put him in this position, and that all of this is a consequence of what Dave did. This isn't something that I wanted to happen. I've always wanted to have a good relationship with his friends, but it's not my fault at the end of the day, and he said that it's not his fault either. I told him that, while I'm not okay with them spending alone time, I do understand that there is not much he can do to avoid him at work. He told me that he has no problem with doing that or putting more boundaries, as he doesn't ever want to disrespect me. He just wasn't aware that this was something that bothered me this much. He also said that since he's looking for a new job, he doubts Dave will be in his life to this degree much longer. We did touch on the same things during this conversation, but we weren't able to get into everything as it was about 2 a.m. at this point, and I had work in the morning. We're going to speak more again tonight and hopefully resolve other things, mostly about how I feel that I'm being treated after some comments on the OG thread brought this to my attention. Again, I want to thank everyone for their input. I don't think that I would have been this brave enough to discuss this if most of you didn't validate my feelings. In the comments, Cultural Shape says, he also said that it's become more difficult for him now that Dave is his supervisor because he essentially controls all his shifts and holidays, and that if he alienates him, it might impact all of that. Honestly, if Dave isn't either prepared to draw a firm boundary between his personal relationship with your boyfriend and their dynamic at work, or to back off the friendship himself so that there is no opportunity to get that twisted, that's also a strike against him being a good guy with no ulterior motives. I understand that possibility might not make the idea of alienating him any less scary, but your boyfriend needs to recognize that he can't use that as his excuse and simultaneously claim that you shouldn't have any issues with Dave. OP replies, I totally agree. I'm surprised he is or was this oblivious to Dave's potential motives. To me, Dave doesn't seem like a good guy at all. Good guys do not try to convince you to get with them and insult your relationship in the process. I hope I made him aware of how wrong they both are to try to continue their friendship without boundaries. Also, something to add, he mentioned last night that Dave has been calling him fat now, which is partly why he thinks Dave is not sexually attracted to him, and that this has become a joke with his work colleagues. Some started calling him beefy, which is just, huh? I honestly don't understand how he could be friends with him. He seems awful to me. My boyfriend probably plays it off like it's nothing, but he does seem to have slight body image issues, and I'm sure deep down it plays on his mind, although he would never admit it. Wait. Your boyfriend had his boss hit on him, tried to break up his relationship, spend hours together late into the evening, and is now disparaging him physically at work. Does your boyfriend know he's being negged and sexually harassed? OP says, my mind immediately went to negging too. I am so exhausted with how much explanation is required to date this boyfriend, and I'm not even the one dating him. You said it perfectly. I was trying to puzzle out why reading it was exhausting. I don't want to criticize a real human in a confusing situation, and since Dave is her boyfriend's boss, the boyfriend is absolutely a victim of harassment. She wrote in a stream of consciousness way, the way people often speak when upset. It's just that, like you said, she seemed to be trying to convince herself why the relationship is worth it. I don't know. Am I valid for criticizing the boyfriend now? Is he just blind and oblivious to everything going on around him? Is that why Dave is preying on him? Because Dave is absolutely a piece of shit. I can absolutely get on board with that. Dave knows he will get away with this because he has got away with it. And now he's just pulling out tricks from his hat. Because calling him fat at work and nagging him like that is just insane. Maybe Dave sees something that we don't. Maybe Dave sees that there is sexual attraction between him and OP's boyfriend. But I don't get it. Why does OP stick around? You're setting yourself on fire for what? Why stay in this situation? It's so easy from the outside in to say, yeah, just break up with him. What are you doing? You're being an idiot. And I can empathize with OP in this situation that it's not hard, but after this much bullshit and him continually defending his own and Dave's actions, I don't see any reason why you would stay. How are you so comfortable staying in a relationship like this? Like, you don't need to convince yourself that this relationship is worth it, because I think most people would be in agreement that it's not worth staying there. Am I the asshole here for not wanting to work with coworker who followed me and took pictures of me with my extramarital partner? So first off, I never cheated on my wife. We have an open marriage. We each have our own extramarital partners that we see together and or by ourselves. My co-workers all know that I'm married, as wife accompanies me to work events, but they didn't know about our open marriage. A few months ago, my wife told me that she got sent a bunch of pictures from my co-worker Jordan. The pictures are of me when I was on a date with another woman. My wife knows about this partner and knew about us being out on that date. So she wasn't surprised at all, but found the whole thing funny. I, however, was a little weirded out. I could understand maybe taking a picture or two, but based on the pictures, Jordan would have had to been following us for 5+ hours, to the point where she must have followed us in a car to multiple locations, as well as outside the hotel room the whole time. That just creeped me out. After explaining that to my wife, she agreed that it was a little creepy. Jordan and I usually work together fairly frequently, but I didn't feel comfortable working with her anymore. So I decided to talk to HR about it, and Jordan was put on other projects. The other projects that Jordan got put on aren't as good as the projects that I'm on. So now Jordan is upset because she thinks that I've derailed her career, which honestly may be true, when all she was doing was trying to look out for my wife. She thinks that what she did was reasonable, considering no one knew about me and my wife's open marriage. Once everything was explained, I should have gotten over it, and she shouldn't get punished for doing the right thing. I still don't feel comfortable working with her though, kind of even less than before since I feel like she's so hostile now. In the comments, ExistingCam319 says, "Not the asshole. If someone took a picture of me with another partner and sent it to my primary partner, it could be overlooked as just looking out for them. But this person took many pictures and followed you to different locations for 5+ hours. That is beyond excessive and would make most people uncomfortable. Stalking. It's called stalking. To be clear, have you confirmed that Jordan followed you and it wasn't just a coincidence that she saw you on your date? And OP says, it would have been impossible for her not to have followed us based on the pictures she took. Like I said in my post, there were pictures taken at multiple locations we had gone to that night. These locations were miles apart. I can also tell based on our state of dress, the difference of the pictures of us going into the hotel room versus the ones of us coming out, which was several hours later. It wasn't just a couple pictures of us that she took when she happened upon us. Well, in that case, I totally get why you wouldn't want to be around her. Not the asshole. You really need to stay away from Jordan. Why is she stalking you? I think she may have feelings for you and took this as an opportunity to get you separated from your wife so she could comfort you and move in. No other reason why someone would stalk you, or I could just have a wild imagination. Or she's been hurt by someone else and is vengeful. Yeah, definitely one of these things has got to be the case, because unless coworker has a loyal relationship with the wife, then it's all about how coworker feels about OP or her own personal past. Not the asshole. 5 hours of stalking/following is a commitment that very few people would undertake. This isn't just a whimsical novelty on a weekend afternoon. You shouldn't have had to explain your personal situation to fix this. A situation that she deliberately caused by trying to catch you. Agree with others. Taking a passing photo with your phone is one thing. This is way beyond it. She created a hostile workplace. Even if it was after work, she stalked you and sent the pictures. This was HR's choice, so it doesn't matter what she thinks. People have a right to not talk about private matters. I think I'm very much on board with everyone else here in saying that there is a sliding scale of what is acceptable in the photography and the length of photography, and where it starts to cross the line being like, Jesus Christ, you didn't have to do all that. I don't really think I agree with that theory that she's trying to break the relationship up so she can nab him. That's a bit too rabbit hole Reddit for me there. I can see a universe where maybe that exists, but really the possibility is just insanely low that that's the thing. Who even thinks of that and wants to comment that? That's ridiculous. Yeah, I'm so obsessed and in love with you, and it's probably not been made obvious until this point, that I'm trying to stalk you and break your marriage off so I can get with you, and this can be done to me also. But yeah, a quick fix to this would be, hey guys, I'm in an open marriage, and everyone would understand where this is coming from and that Jordan is a piece of shit for doing what she did, but, you know, you have a right to not talk about your private matters, absolutely. You shouldn't have to oust your relationship dynamic just to fend off accusations from a freak that stalked you. So I'm gonna go with not the asshole for this one. I would, stay absolutely away from Jordan. That is ridiculous. And now, onto the update. So a thing happened with a new coworker yesterday. When making introductions, Jordan decided to bring up my open marriage, which was super awkward and weird. I ended up going back to HR about it at the end of the day. They had already gotten other comments from some other employees about it and said right away that it was inappropriate and they would be taking disciplinary action. When I came into work today, I found out that Jordan was let go. Funny little thing that I heard from someone else was that she apparently had tried to defend herself by saying that she was just trying to be helpful by making sure the new employee was clearly informed and didn't misunderstand things like her. In the comments, Knitted Jedi says, "That's just awkward and uncomfortable for everyone within earshot." Hey, just FYI, Opie and his wife bone other people. I got in trouble for pointing it out before to his wife before I knew they were open, so I'm pointing it out again so you don't get in trouble. I'm a normal and well-adjusted human being that can be trusted around others, and definitely don't stalk people for my own pleasure. So if you just happen to follow him for hours on the weekends and take a zillion pictures of who he's with, just keep the pictures to yourself, okay? I was helping the new employees in case they decided to be a creepy stalker and follow OP for several hours while taking photos. Just looking out for a friend, you know? Quotes, She apparently had tried to defend herself by saying she was just trying to be helpful by making sure the new employee was clearly informed and didn't misunderstand things like her. That's like one of the dumbest excuses I've heard for stalking. I'm quite glad that I don't have coworkers like this. This was absolutely an "I'm mad and going to make other people know that OP sucks" from Jordan, considering how much most people judge you if you do any kind of ethical non-monogamy. Absolutely agreed that he should be ready for Jordan to do more. Unpopular opinion time, bring on the downvotes. It's one thing when you know both parties in the couple to inform the assumedly injured party about cheating, yet it isn't an objectively black and white situation as the war cries of Reddit want to believe. In this situation, Jordan needed to look out for her own neck. Even if she didn't stalk them for half a day, she still should have minded her own business, and her paycheck. And yeah, following them for several hours, that's beyond being a good person, and goes right into self-righteous and bored. How long did she wait outside a hotel for them to come out? Seems like she had it in for OP and saw her opportunity. Get enough evidence, the wife will leave him, and he'll look bad at work. When that didn't work, make sure to mention to the new people his lifestyle to make sure they know he's weird. Here's how I look at this. Everyone wants to be able to distinguish a friend from an enemy. This is a simple way. Someone reports that I've done or said something bad, look at how people respond to this news. Friend. That doesn't sound like something that he would say or do. There must be another reason. Enemy. That motherfucker. I always knew he was bad, and this proves it. Our friends assume there must be an acceptable explanation, even if the best I can do is I was wrong and I'm sorry. Our enemies assume the only explanation is we are awful, and they're glad that I'm about to have proof now. I think that's a pretty good little tidbit to finish this story on, because yeah, it does seem as though Jordan's burning that bridge when she gets to it. She is looking for friends and enemies within the department she's working in. I can understand why Jordan is pissed off and is seeking vengeance in the way that she is, but surely she has to realize that she is brain dead for doing so. Like, you started off with such freak behavior, and now you're getting vengeance because you were proven to be a freak to the rest of the people in your office, and not fired, but simply just moved on to another department? Knowingly creating a toxic work environment, then in response to getting consequences for your actions, doubling down and making it even more toxic. Yeah, Jordan is someone that I wish to never have to work with in my life. That just sounds terrible. Anyway, I'd love to know what you guys have to say about this one down in the comments. I'm sure it's going to be really favorable towards Jordan. Not. Our next post is by user NegativeNewt1788, titled, "Am I the asshole for revealing my brother's body count to his fiancée? I, 30 female, was out having a girls' night with my little brothers, 28 male, fiancé, 24 female. They recently got engaged after dating for about a year. I enjoy hanging out with my soon-to-be sister-in-law, and this was one of the only times that I've hung out with her without my brother in tow. So we were having a ball, and most of us were a bit tipsy, and she started asking me about my marriage and some more intimate questions, like how's it feel to be with one person for the rest of your life and all that jazz. Following this conversation, someone in the group asked everyone how many folks each gal has slept with. I honestly wasn't comfortable with the conversation, but my soon-to-be sister-in-law sort of took hold of the topic and mentioned that her and my brother don't concern themselves with each other's past. Her words were, "The past stays in the past, and if he slept with 20 women, what does it matter to her?" I agree with her, but this is where I probably messed up. My brother was somewhat adventurous in his late teens, early 20s. He was a college athlete and in a frat. As we went to the same college and had a lot of mutual friends, this is information that was made aware to me without my wanting, to be honest. So I know the ballpark of his body count, and it's well over 50 women, probably closer to 100. And my brother confirmed this to me when I asked him if he was being safe with his decisions at that time. For example, going to the doctor to get tested and such. She followed up her comment with something like, "And even if it was a huge number, like 35 people or so, I wouldn't care." Her saying that prompted me to ask, what if it was 50 women? She got a sort of a strange look on her face and mouthed a word, 50. but I played it off like I didn't know what I was talking about and was more so curious about what her cutoff range for a lot is. Fast forward a few days, and I meet them both for lunch, and she seems sort of sullen, and my brother is being short with me. When she goes to the bathroom, I ask my brother what's up, and he basically blames me for having revealed his past sexual history to his fiancée, and now she's acting strange towards him. I explained that it was a slip of the tongue, and I didn't confirm any number, but now he's pissed, and a couple of our mutual friends have let me know that I effed up. Am I the asshole here? In the comments, Typical Internet 730 says, "You're the asshole, but I think you wanted her to know that she had such a low number compared to the truth. I think you believe your brother was reckless and using women, so she needed to know his past. Personally, I bet he was reckless and using women, but I have to assume that it was consensual. He was given the opportunity to have a ton of sex, and he took it. But I think only he should be the one discussing numbers with, maybe not future sister-in-law. Once you put that number in the air, it was over. She is now obviously hurt to hear it. She may have believed that it was high, but not knowing was easier. This is a very tough situation now, and their relationship may never recover, or maybe it will, but it's going to take time. You forced them to have a conversation they agreed to avoid, so be prepared to lose your brother for a while, or possibly forever. I'm betting you meant no harm or malice, but now you have to live with the repercussions. Good luck repairing your relationship, and I hope they're able to move forward with theirs." You're the asshole. Being drunk is not an excuse. How come you weren't comfortable sharing your own count, but happily threw your brothers into the conversation that was 100% in your power to finish/change the subject? OP replies, "I never said that I didn't share my number, nor was I drunk. Everyone was slightly tipsy though. I didn't say you didn't share your number. I said you were uncomfortable. Just because you shared yours didn't give you the right to share other people's body count. This is something that him and his fiancée need to discuss and share between each other, not something for her to hear from a third party." OP says, "I was uncomfortable with the whole discussion as it veers into dangerous territory in my opinion. I'm not uncomfortable sharing my count, lol." Well then why'd you open your big mouth and play into the conversation? So you knew that it was dangerous territory and decided to blow it for your brother, instead of figuring out if you're the asshole or not, which in this case you are. Find ways to apologize and make peace with your brother and his fiancée if possible. 30 years old and not yet grown up. Yeah, OP, just because you're not uncomfortable sharing your count, you don't really say that you're comfortable sharing your count either. Everyone's asking if you shared your count because they wanted to see if there was hypocrisy. They wanted to see if there was ill intent and your motivations were sound or not. Why didn't you just go in and say it with your chest, "This is my count," and leave your brother out of it? Why? Oh, no, I'm actually really comfortable sharing his private details that didn't need to be aired out. But I'm not uncomfortable sharing my count. I'm just not generally comfortable with doing it because that's private information that's cool with me to hide. But other people, the public should know, for real. You saw that your future sister-in-law was getting uncomfortable with the topic, that she probably had doubts about the number, and you just had that liquid courage from the alcohol and were like, I'm not going to read the room. I'm going to double down. I'm going to make this worse. And then I'm going to play victim afterwards. Oh yeah, sorry, that was a slip of the tongue. I didn't mean to, point at a potential number of yours. It was simply in jest, Your Honor. I was doing it for the Vine once again. Absolutely you're the asshole for this one, OP. Learn to read the room and learn to respect people's private matters. And now, on to the update. Y'all, I showed my brother the post after apologizing for my mistake, and mostly he laughed, but was baffled at the hostile replies. My brother and future sister-in-law are fine. My future sister-in-law actually approached me privately and let me know that she was happy to have the conversation now with my brother versus later. She did say that it was a shock when he told her his sexual history, but at that point, I excused myself out of the conversation and let her know that I would not be having any discussions about my brother's sexual history from here on out. My brother is not plotting his revenge like commenters and messages implied. He understands that although this was not in my court to say, he probably shouldn't have waved it off at the early stages of their relationship like he had done. Yes, brother and future sister-in-law are still together. To the internet psychologists who diagnosed me with psychopathy and narcissism, you should consider touching grass. For what it's worth, I also got a lot of messages telling me that they wished sexual history was discussed in greater detail with their partners prior to marriage. Take that as you will. I also got messages that were pretty explicit and in the opposite direction. For those who tried to imply my brother and I have an incestuous relationship, please close the porn tabs and wipe the Cheeto dust off your fingers. Something I didn't mention was that I was a college athlete myself, and word travels fast in those groups. I'm close enough with my brother to ask if he was being safe with his choices, and that's how I came to know his sexual past. In the comments, Please Help 33 says, "So, you got all pissy that you were rightly judged the asshole in your previous post, so now you've posted again attacking the commenters? Again, you're the asshole." OP says, "I'm not pissy. I take responsibility for my part and was the asshole in that situation. No doubt about it. I posted this update because it was suggested by a few that I do, and a lot of folks were making assumptions that I ruined his relationship." Nah, you're asking people to touch grass and calling them names. You're just pissed at being called out. The "you're the asshole" was warranted, but some people were getting pretty unhinged about it. Quote, she followed up her comment with something like, "And even if it was a huge number, like 35 people or so, I wouldn't care." Her saying that prompted me to ask, what if it was 50 women? Knitted Jedi says, "Maybe it's just me, but it's still not clear whether OP's brother straight up lied to his fiancée about his sexual history, or whether they just didn't discuss it. They quote-unquote discussed it by saying that it doesn't matter and kicking that can down the road." Also, what was future sister-in-law expecting when she brought the discussion around to OP's brother's sexual history? She was obviously fishing, or she wouldn't have thrown out numbers. If OP had lied and said a lower number and it came out later, would future sister-in-law be pissed that OP was covering for their brother? This was a no-win situation. The only body count I want to know from my sexual partner is whether or not I'm going to find a dead body in their shower. I have a difficult time understanding why anyone would want to know any more information than A, do you have an active and/or contagious STI? B, are we on the same page when it comes to monogamy? C, do our sexual preferences line up? And D, enthusiastic consent. Beyond that, I don't really care. My husband and I had the partner count discussion early on as more of a gauge of experience and a discussion of monogamy. We had both just gotten out of poly relationships and decided a very clear and raw sexual history discussion and a discussion of our desires and boundaries was the best way forward. Well then, sounds like it was a healthy approach to take and probably for the best. Honestly, I feel like most conversations had between two mature partners in an open and honest way will be productive and healthy for the relationship. Yup, absolutely. We both carried baggage from unethical poly relationships that ended up turning into a deep need for extremely open lines of communication. I'm very glad that we found each other. The approach we've taken in our relationship has allowed us both to heal and to trust each other very deeply. I guess my final take on this situation is that I think OP shouldn't have started attacking people in their response. Just because the situation turned out fine for you doesn't mean that people calling you out was the wrong thing to do. Doesn't mean that these people need to touch grass. Yes, he shouldn't have waved it off to the early stages of their relationship, but you shouldn't have taken the bait when future sister-in-law started fishing for responses. I still think you need to have clear boundaries and respect for your brother and his history and his wants and needs. Just because you got a lot of messages telling you that they wished sexual history was discussed in greater detail prior to marriage, the way that I'm taking that message and how I feel like you tried to portray this, sandwiched in between negative messages, is that you're saying, look, I was right. Look, it opened up a discussion that some people probably regretted their marriage not knowing their number beforehand. And me doing something like this and picking the can up that was kicked down the road maybe helped some people in a way. Because I think you're putting a negative tone on the flip side. You said, take that as you will. I also got messages that were pretty explicit in the opposite direction. I think the message you need to take from this, OP, is to respect the privacy of people's marriages. Just because some people want to be very open about their sexual history, and some people will attack you for not being open about their sexual history, doesn't mean that anything you're doing here is right, and I don't think it should be encouraged going forward. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents and my little rant on this one. Me, 29 female, want to trade my soon-to-be ex, 38 male, my engagement ring for the family dog. Me caveman, me want trade. My soon-to-be ex dear, or damn, husband, and I are divorcing after 6 years. We have 2 kids, 7 months old and 5 years old. He doesn't want a divorce, but is keeping it friendly so far because of the kids. We ran into a snag when he moved out and took the family dog Loki. Loki is 4 and is trained as a therapy dog. I did all the training and care for Loki. I used to take him to visit the patients at 2 hospice facilities twice a week. Soon-to-be ex loves the dog, but not as much as I do. I will have primary custody, and I think it would be best if the kids didn't lose the dog too. My 5-year-old keeps asking for him, and it breaks my heart. The issue is that I bought the dog for my soon-to-be ex as a Christmas gift. Legally, the dog is his. The only leverage I have is my wedding set, worth about $8,000. They were his grandma's. He and his mother want the set back. There was never an agreement to give them back in the event of divorce, spoken or written. Legally, the rings were a gift and they are mine. I have no intention of keeping the rings. They should stay in the family no matter what. Even if I give the rings back, they will probably end up going to my sons when they're old enough. I probably wouldn't think to keep them or use them for barter if the divorce wasn't his fault, but it is entirely his fault. He cheated while I was pregnant, so maybe anger is clouding my judgment a bit too. Is it really crappy that I hold his dead grandma's rings from him unless he gives me back the family dog that I gifted him? Any pointers for how this conversation should go down? In the comments, Treetop Tree says, make sure you get something in writing so he can't take Loki again after he gets the jewelry. Whatever you get in writing, make sure that it's notarized. I learned that lesson the hard way. First up, I commend you on being noble enough to return the family heirloom. I think a lot of people would be bitter and hang on to them out of spite. Despite your husband's assholery, you are doing a good thing. I wouldn't feel guilty about offering up a trade. He wronged the marriage and probably took the dog to be hurtful, since it sounds like you were probably most bonded with Loki. Tell him that you want the dog, the kids want the dog, and if he can play fair, you will offer up the rings. Loki is 4 and trained as a therapy dog. Whomever Loki is working for or with should get Loki. I read the rest, no opinion. OP says, I trained him. Loki and I go to hospice twice a week to visit the patients. He hasn't been since soon-to-be ex took him. That is good work. I hope that however this turns out, Loki will still get an opportunity to do this work. It's important work. My own dog certified through the Delta Society and got DQ'd due to raw diet many years ago. She's back on kibble now for a variety of reasons, and I'm going to re-qualify her. Good luck. The amount of training can be intense, and the bond is very, very strong. I can't imagine losing Elka, and I wish you the best. I think this is a hard one. Loki was a gift to your husband, and as such, is his. It's too bad that he can't weigh in. Heartbreaking all around. Good luck to all of you. My ex gave me a cheap ring as engagement, and we used the same ring for my wedding band as well. It had belonged to an aunt who he had no major attachment to, and was a diamond chip and a sapphire chip in a thin gold band. Honestly, I doubt Pawnshop would have given me $50 for it. He was a real tool. Long story, and when we finally went to mediation, we were in separate rooms with the mediator going between us. He wanted the ring back, and I, more joking than anything, told her that I would give him the ring if he took debt from third credit card. We had 2 at $5,000 and 1 at $3,000, and he agreed. The mediator legitimately asked me, is your ex, slow? I mean, is his IQ normal? I almost died. Point of fact, a few years later, his own lawyer asked me the same thing. I think it's fair that you get dogs with kids. Maybe offer to keep the same custody of dog as kids. I'm not sure I would even offer to trade the ring for it unless I had to. And on her ex and the end of the marriage, OP says, he blames me. He thinks I forced him to cheat. I'm not the carefree 20-year-old that he fell in love with. I don't give him my full attention now that I have 2 kids, work full-time, care for the home, and have hobbies. He thinks that I didn't try hard enough to forgive him when he got caught. I love age gap relationships. 29 years old with a 38-year-old. Like, I know they do work, absolutely, but more often than not, we see the most abuse going on when there's gigantic age gaps here. He thinks I didn't try hard enough to forgive him when he got caught? What? Does this man even want to stay married? Oh, I got caught, but you need to try harder to forgive me. I've already begged and pleaded on my knees as much as possible, and now it's your turn, and you're not trying hard enough to keep us together. Does that work? Does it genuinely work on people when they say something like that is outlandish? Of course you're not the carefree 20-year-old. You've got a full-on life now. What's this guy's problem? And now, onto the update. I talked to soon-to-be-ex that night about our oldest son, 5. Our son has been asking for his daddy and our dog Loki since soon-to-be-ex moved out 3 months ago. Soon-to-be-ex has only come to visit twice. I told him that we all miss the dog, and I thought DS would adjust better if Loki came back to us. I told him that I also missed taking Loki to the hospice center twice a week, as he's a therapy dog. He got mad, accused me of trying to guilt him into giving back our 5-year-old's dog. He reminded me that I had gotten the dog for him for Christmas. So I offered him the trade, his grandma's diamond engagement ring and wedding ring for the dog. He refused and accused me of holding his dead grandmother's rings for ransom and said that I wanted to take everything from him. Blah, blah. Yesterday, his mother came to visit my kids. We have a very good relationship. She's a lovely woman in a tough position. She's mad at soon-to-be-ex for cheating on me while pregnant and destroying our marriage, but she has to take his side. But still, she wants to protect her own interests too, access to her grandchildren, but I'm divorcing her son, not her. We had a lovely visit, and I asked her to talk to her son about giving Loki back. Turns out that soon-to-be-ex has been complaining about the dog non-stop. He's 4 and has very high energy. He's used to working 2 days a week and getting 2 walks a day. Soon-to-be-ex moved in with his new girlfriend, and she hates the dog. There is no yard, and she doesn't help with any of Loki's care. She agreed that Loki belonged with me and her grandsons, but was hesitant to get involved because soon-to-be-ex loves Loki too, and technically the dog was a gift to him. I told her just because something was a gift didn't always mean that the receiver should keep it. With that, I pulled off my wedding set, her mother's, and gave them back to her. She was teary and grateful and said she couldn't promise anything, and I told her that I would just appreciate her speaking to soon-to-be-ex about it. It was a gamble on my part, but she's always done right by me, and divorcing a mama's boy does have some advantages. Soon-to-be-ex dropped Loki off an hour ago, and we are all so overjoyed. Edit: I cannot believe how this blew up. Thanks everyone for the nice comments. I'm blessed with a very wonderful mother-in-law that has been nothing but supportive of me. She was a godsend when I had my youngest. We are going to work hard to preserve our relationship. We need each other more than ever now. I already called her crying, thanking her for shaming her son. I'm glad to offer a good mother-in-law story. In the comments, C. Junk says, "Hey, good on you for taking the high road, even if it sometimes feels like you're giving in. I think there's great benefits to keeping this relationship as cordial as possible, and it's great that Grandma's got your back." OP says, "She's a fantastic woman. Any woman would be lucky to have her as a mother-in-law. One of the hardest things about this was to figure out how our relationship would change, but I don't think that it has to. She's always been very supportive of me, especially this. I can't take her only grandchildren away when she is so good to us. What a piece of garbage your ex is. He's only seen his kid twice in 7 months? OP says, yeah, soon-to-be ex liked the idea of having kids. The reality, not so much. It's disappointing that he doesn't want to take advantage of visitation. This morning, he just texted me from the street to come get the dog. I invited him in, but he was pouting and didn't want to see the kids or deal with my son's subsequent meltdown when he tried to leave. His new girlfriend, 20, was in the car. I was so happy at the time to have the dog back, but now I'm really annoyed that he was such a jerk about giving the dog back, and he brought his girlfriend to our house. It's a roller coaster, to be sure. Quotes, and divorcing a mama's boy does have some advantages. Lamau? Funniest line ever. But seriously, at least ex-mother-in-law is very nice to OP. That guy is the very definition of arsehole. Kept a dog he didn't want just so he could spite the ex-wife. I hope the ex has a miserable life because he deserves it. So she was 23 when they married, he was 32. Now he's gotten together with another 20-something? I guess he subscribes to the train of thought, the only good thing about getting older is that the girls stay the same age. Oof. Let's see. He 1. Cheated while OP was pregnant. 2. Blamed OP for making him cheat. 3. Blamed OP for not trying hard enough to forgive him. 4. Doesn't see his kids. 5. Kept a dog that he doesn't want, but his kids want, from them, because he didn't want OP to have it. 6. Had only seen his kids twice in 7 months, and 7. Continues to blame OP for everything. Yeah, he's something else. And 8. Prevented a therapy dog from working at a hospice for several months. Yeah, there really is no way to sugarcoat this one. He's just a giant flaming turd of a person. I hope every time he gets up in the morning he steps on a Lego piece, and then another one. Also, am I jaded in my perception that we never have good mother-in-laws on here, or is it just because people don't really post about it when they have good mothers-in-law? I'm not so sure, but I'm very happy that she stepped in and put her foot down in this situation. It's insane when you have a whole circus of idiots supporting an obviously abusive asshole that is done wrong every step of the way. But I was honestly expecting it to happen, and I'm so glad that the opposite did, because screw that guy. Our next post is by user FLisp71, titled, My parents threw out my sister's favorite pair of shoes for getting a B on a final. So my sister got a B on her calculus final, and our parents had a complete meltdown. She's been having trouble in class all semester, and they've done nothing but tell her to work harder. They told her that there would be consequences if she didn't get an A on the test, and they threw out 2 pairs of Doc Martens shoes that she'd worked the entire summer for. I am so mad at them. She's already taking 3 AP classes and tutoring 3 other students in another class. She barely has a social life because she has to study 24/7. They expect her to get into an Ivy League school, and any other school would be a failure in their eyes. Her dream school is Penn State, but that's not an Ivy League, so they stopped her from applying. They don't plan on paying for her tuition either, because they expect her to receive a full scholarship. They treat her like garbage and act surprised when she acts out in response. She doesn't deserve to be treated like this. She ran out of the house in tears, and I found her sobbing in a park next to our house. I know they're just a pair of shoes, but they meant a lot to my sister. She wore them everywhere. I hate seeing her like this. They treat us so differently, and I hate it. They demand perfection from her, but coddle me like a baby. They don't expect perfection from me, and if I make a mistake, they brush it off. But my sister comes home 1 minute past curfew, she gets grounded for 2 weeks. I come home an hour past curfew, and they tell me next time will be different, but I never receive the punishment. They love parading around their son's achievements, but barely speak a word about my sister's achievements to the rest of our family. My uncle told me good job for getting good grades at Thanksgiving last month, and I told him that my sister has the highest GPA in her class, and he did not care. If she gets anything less than an A, she does not care about her future, but I can get a C in a class, and they tell me that it's not a big deal, and that I try my best. The only reason I got a C in chemistry is because my awesome sister sat me down and helped me. She has been my rock and my role model my entire life, and when she leaves for college next year, I'm going to miss her so much. I tell her that I'm not going to miss her, but I will. She hasn't left her room all day, and my mum asked me why she's so mad. You cut the laces of her favorite shoes and threw them out the window into the bushes. My sister is not going to talk to them for weeks probably, and they don't understand why. They are never going to understand why. My sister does not deserve this treatment. My dad does seem extremely remorseful though. He never says sorry for anything, but he's been knocking on her door since 10 a.m. to apologize, and keeps saying he needs to start being more kind to my sister. In the comments, Laughing Man Returns says, I think she needs to stop trying before she burns out completely and leave as soon as possible, cutting all contact. This will not end well. OP says, she is a massive people pleaser, but I think last night opened her eyes because she said she was done trying to appease everyone and putting herself second. She does plan on going no contact from my parents for a while when she does go to college, and I don't blame her. Hey, for what it's worth, I think you should come clean to your sister and admit just how much you value her, and how unfairly you think she's being treated by your parents. Sounds like she could really use the knowledge that she still has someone in her corner. OP says, she thanked me for comforting her and always having her back last night, so she does know. Our grandparents also back her up, so she has their support as well. Nice to see people here on Reddit who understand how to brother well. Good job and keep it up, especially in the male-oriented environment that your sister is forced to be in. Don't let her out of your sight. The black sheep/golden child dynamic is hurtful to both sides. It's completely illogical. One child is responsible for living up to insane standards, one is not really believed in or made responsible and gets infantilized. I'm sorry your parents have lost their goddamn minds. It's good that you're standing behind your sister though. OP says, it's a good thing our grandparents live nearby, because without them keeping me in check, I would absolutely be getting into all kinds of trouble with the freedom I have. These are the types of parents who end up old and alone, bemoaning their children's refusal to see them anymore. I worked in a nursing home for a few years, shocking the lack of visitors until you got to know the patients. How a patient treats a care worker is often how they would treat their own child. My first ever job was at a nursing home. I was 17, working in the kitchen, and I'd also bring food to some residents' rooms if they didn't want to eat in the dining hall that day. The really nice residents had visitors round the clock. Their kids and grandkids and friends were constantly there, and their families always knew my name before I introduced myself because their resident told them about me. It was very touching. My favorite resident treated me like I was a grandchild. She was so warm and sweet. She would give me candy whenever she saw me, winking like it was our fun secret. She had the most beautiful scarves that she liked to wear, and after she passed, her daughter gave me a scarf because Mum loved you, and she wanted you to have it. I still have that scarf and wear it proudly in her honor. Her family keeps up with me on social media, and I see them when I go back to my hometown. The nasty ones never had a visitor. Not a single one. Holidays would come around and the dining hall would be packed with visitors, and the nasty ones were all at a table on their own, sneering at the people who had visitors. I used to feel so bad for them, but when I'd explain their behavior to my parents, they'd say, well, they are the reason why they are alone. That job made me hyper aware of the phrase, reaping what you sow. Yeah, as much as I'm also aware of the what will I regret on my deathbed kind of phrase. And so far, not really much, so that's kind of how I lead my life personally. I feel like OP, you are pretty much doing the best that you can in this situation as the golden child of the family, helping out the obvious black sheep of the family. I don't really know what else you can do in this situation. Your parents kind of hold all the power, and yes, you can talk to them about it and try and change their minds, but it doesn't really seem like they are going to change if they're the type that are the stereotypical abusive, controlling parents. You're probably just going to have that old adage of, "You're not old enough, you don't understand yet. When you grow up, you'll understand what it's like. Don't talk back, I'm your elder. You're literally not allowed to say anything to me." Oh, why? Because I said so. It does seem as though no contact is in the future for these parents. And now, onto the update. She is staying with my grandparents for the rest of December. They had been talking all day yesterday, and my dad agreed to let her stay there for the rest of the month. They are going on a trip the first week of January, so I don't know what will happen then, but the time away from my parents will be good for her. I took her shoes out of the bushes and replaced the laces in case she still wants them in the future. Second update. My grandparents agreed to let my sister stay with them for the rest of the semester. My sister is going to go to community college for 1 year, her decision, and then transfer to Penn State. She has barely spoken to my parents since December, as have I, in solidarity with her, and it has had a noticeable effect on them. I gave her back the shoes, and she has not worn them yet, but they are still in her room. In the comments, Terminator Chic says, "What a wonderful golden child. They actually recognize and dislike the differences. I'm the black sheep in my family, and it still means everything to me that my siblings saw it and were there for me. If OP ever comes over here, let her know that you'll miss her. Let her know that you already miss her. Let her know that you're aware of how unfair it is. Those things are so important to hear. Knowing someone sees and understands the struggle means so much." I'd give this 1,000,000 upvotes if I could. It took till my 50s to finally hear from my siblings that they saw my mistreatment and knew that it was wrong. That single acknowledgement launched my healing forward immensely. Once during a fight, my sister told me that my mother told her that I was the favorite child. It's haunting me since that day. I asked her a few years later if that was true or just something she said in the heat of the fight, and she confirmed. I find it truly so shocking that a parent, my own mother, could spit in the face of her child like that. Doc Martens are not a cheap shoe. Working an entire summer for them just for some narcissistic parents to throw them out because a grade wasn't up to standard? OP did the right thing here. The parents will be wondering why they're left out of OP in the sisters' lives. Point them back at this. Good for OP. I wish there were more people like them. They are not cheap, and they'll last you years. I would lose my shit if someone tossed my Doc Martens. Years from now, the parents are probably going to be mystified as to why OP's sister doesn't want to talk to them anymore. Bridezilla ruins her own wedding, demands bridal party pay her cancelled wedding. Starting the year strong, I swear. So, my friend Dana, female 29, was supposed to be getting married this past Sunday on the 14th of January. The wedding got cancelled and things had gotten very crazy. Dana was getting married to Josh, male 32. She's still in college with me and asked a few friends from college, myself included, to be her bridal party. Now, from the start, this wedding has been a disaster. I'm going to just point out a few of the crazy things that we've dealt with. 1. She refused to invite my best friend, who she's supposedly good friends with, because she thinks that we're lesbian lovers. We're not. 2. She had us go to the dress fitting and then demanded each of us pay $2,000 each for our dresses. Apparently she had a specific style she wanted. I can afford it, but I won't buy a $2,000 dress for one event. Some of the girls in the bridal party don't have that flexibility with money. 3. Apparently Josh couldn't invite any single females that were not blood relatives of him, so if he had any female friends, they were axed. 4. One of the girls in the bridal party doesn't drink because of her religion. Dana accused her of being pregnant in front of her parents and almost got her kicked out of her house. She was not pregnant, and she dropped from the bridal party. She was a class act though, and never bad-talked Dana, just said that she couldn't make it. We found out about it pretty much on the day of the wedding. And 5, she tried to make us cancel our holidays with our families to instead go with her to a destination bachelorette party. I work full-time even during holidays, so I told her that was not happening. More of the bridesmaids said similar things, and she dropped it. That's just 5 things of countless drama this wedding was having before the day. Now, the meat of the story comes on the wedding day. The day started horrible. Dana was having a meltdown because apparently the flower girl had to cancel because she has chickenpox. She was threatening to sue the mother unless she brought this sick 3-year-old to the wedding. Josh apparently was able to calm her down from this starter outburst, and we began preparations. The whole day, she had constant outbursts. She made people cry, like wedding staff and bridesmaids. The maid of honor deserves a medal for the amount of diplomacy and bullshit control that she had to do. I, for the most part, took the easy route and decided to work outside the bridal suit, like checking flowers, making sure food was okay, basically any excuse not to be around the bride. Eventually, I had my hair and makeup done, and then the bride asked for a little bit of time alone to decompress from the stress. We didn't even fight it. You could not see a group of women run faster away. The wedding was starting in 30 minutes, so we figured that she would be fine alone for that little. I spent those 30 minutes just sitting in the chapel with my phone. It had to be about 5 minutes before the start of the wedding when maid of honor came over to tell me the wedding was cancelled. I asked her what happened, and maid of honor says Dana was having a quickie with Josh's uncle in the room. Josh caught them. I just stared at the maid of honor with my mouth pretty much about to reach the floor. She told me to run and that she was trying to get as many people out before things exploded. So I quickly got my purse, gathered the 2 bridesmaids that were carpooling with me, and we left like the devil was after us. I checked with the other bridesmaid and all had escaped. That night, I called the maid of honor to check what had happened, and the tea was bad. Apparently, and rightfully, Josh called off the wedding, called her a few times, told off his uncle, and has since left with his mates to, I hope, have the biggest single-man party ever. I feel so bad for him. He's an absolute gem of a man. He apparently told Dana and her parents that she will be paying for the cancellation fees. According to the maid of honor, Dana's father told her in front of everyone that she was paying for it on her own for being an SLUT. I thought that was the end of it. I made the choice to separate myself from this mess until I got a call from Dana, not even an hour ago, demanding $5,000 to help pay her cancellation fees. According to Dana, it was our duty as the bridal party to pay for her cancellation fees. I obviously told her no, and that she might as well lose my number. I am never speaking to this woman again. This has been pretty much the reaction of all the bridesmaids and the maid of honor. By the way, maid of honor? Josh's older sister. In the comments, some more tea. OP says, the sad part? She had her makeup and hair done, and we left dressed and ready. So yeah, she was wearing her wedding dress for this. You should have stayed to get more info. OP says, as much as I like tea, I know when it's best to retreat and get it from a witness. I'm pretty sure if I stayed, Dana would have dragged us into something. Was Dana always like this? Oh, we're sure there's no moral compass in there. She used to be incredibly nice way back before her engagement, and since becoming the first bride of the group, she's become insufferable. We were all on our last thread. How long was she having a thing with the uncle? OP says, how long with the uncle? No idea. I found out during the wedding and don't have any info on it since. Poor Josh. I hope he finds someone. I'm not gonna lie, pretty sure half the bridal party would offer themselves as tribute. He's a good-looking guy. I don't know him that well, but we've had drinks a few times. He'll find a girl when he's ready in a snap. What happened to the $2,000 dresses, and what were they? OP says, nobody bought the dresses. Some of the girls can't afford it. She had a full meltdown in the chat until maid of honor got involved and offered to buy cheaper dresses for the bridesmaids. Ellie Saab. Dress was beautiful. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't buy it for a wedding. How did that one bridesmaid's parents think that she was pregnant when she doesn't drink for her culture? OP says, well, my understanding, bear in mind I'm sharing as I was told, is that Dana and this bridesmaid are really old friends, so the bridesmaid's parents have a level of trust with Dana. Apparently bridesmaid had been feeling sick a few days prior, and I remember she had to cancel something. Then we went to prepare the bachelorette party, and there was going to be an extra charge for mocktails, which she offered to pay. Dana found out somehow and spoke first to her parents, telling them that the bridesmaid was acting like she was pregnant, not mentioning that the whole issue was because the bridesmaid refused to make an exception for the bachelorette party about drinking. Obviously still kinda bad on the parents, but I can see where they're coming from. Bridesmaid is not pregnant, for the record. She was actually just sick. Also, in case someone asks, Bridesmaid no longer lives with her parents and hasn't for a few years. Bridesmaid was then contacted by her parents and told never to come back to their home for being an WHORE that got pregnant outside marriage. I know she lives in dorms, so I imagine she's going back during vacations. It's still the family home, and she keeps a room there. Someone says, this is fake because there are no cancellation fees the day of the wedding. And OP says, oh, pardon me for not knowing how wedding planning works when I've never worked or cared for planning a wedding, because, must be common knowledge for everyone everywhere. I translated what I was told. What I was told by the bride is, necesito el dinero para pagar la boda. I can't read Spanish. I can't do it. I'm in Narcos. I'm going to channel my inner narco. El hijo de puta cancelo y me están cobrando. Feel free to figure out the translation in English. I don't even know what to say about this one. That was just a shit show, but for me being a sticky beak, if I were to put myself in this situation, I'd kind of want to just be a fly on the wall. I don't know if I'd leave. I'd watch from a distance, and if I were targeted, I'd start walking away. But I, really wanted to see the chaos unfold in person. I want to know what that was like, because how do you get caught banging the uncle 30 minutes before the wedding starts? I'm guessing you were doing it in the men's changing room, and why wouldn't he be in there 30 minutes before? It's not, the math ain't mathing. Maybe it's those sweet Spanish nothings that I've just said, but my brain is scrambled trying to figure out what in the tarnation is going on. And now, on to the update. Hey guys, I know a lot of people want to know what happened. After talking to Josh yesterday, he asked me to only say that he's okay, figuring things out, and moving on. We're going to stay friends with him and his sister. Dana was told that no one in the group wants to interact with her, and since then, it's mostly radio silence. I can't share more about Josh's future plans, as he asked me not to. He did have a good laugh at some of the comments that I showed him, and appreciates the support. The one detail I did get correct on those who were curious about his uncle, he's the younger brother of Josh's mother, and he's 55 years old. I thought he was married into the family, but I got that detail wrong. I also found out the most disgusting detail is the uncle knew Dana since she was a teenager. Dana and Josh are high school sweethearts, so yeah, I kinda feel gross knowing that. Other than that, I got a major haul of cake, so at least I got something good out of this mess. In the comments, a little more information. OP says, a few things I've been asked not to share, but I can share, is Josh is okay and working to get things in order. He came over too and seemed down, but we got him to laugh a bit, so there's some good news. No news on Dana. I actually requested to change some of my classes with her, or drop if I could find alternative schedule. Not in any hurry since I'm only a student part-time. Someone asks, 29 and still in college? OP says, first time for Dana, second time for me. A few of the other girls in my friend group are also returning or starting later in life due to college's cost. What happened to the uncle and his family? OP says, from what I can share, I was asked to keep a lot of details private by Josh himself. His wife, the uncle's wife, is planning a divorce. That's really all he wants me to say. Further in the comments, Wild Butterscotch says, I remember this post. Effing another dude, the groom's uncle no less, on your wedding day, at the goddamn venue. A whole new level of cheating. And in her wedding dress too. The Spanish version of the message makes absolute sense. She doesn't say that she had to pay a cancellation fee, she says that the son of a gun cancelled the wedding and now the bride has to pay for the wedding. She probably has to pay for the resulting bill since the groom cancelled and he wouldn't pay for it. Oh, that's what it meant. Man, my Spanish was just too good that of course I knew that's what it meant, yeah. Well, all's well that ends well in that story, hey guys? I mean, getting cheated on in the wedding dress 30 minutes before you're about to get married with your uncle, I don't think it really can get any worse from there. So it's only up from here for the groom and down from here for the bride. That's my personal opinion on this matter. But you know what? Thank God they're actually leaving that relationship because that's an obvious deal breaker. Unlike our next story, which but yeah, all jokes aside, all of this sadness and disgusting action aside, I'm very much rooting for the groom to have a long, happy, and healthy life from here. It sucks that people do bad things like this, but that's just life sometimes. Onwards and upwards, my man. Our next post is by user ThrowRentry9210, titled, After we, me 35 female, opened up our relationship, younger men have been throwing themselves at me. My husband, 40 male, is displeased. I am 35 female, husband is 40 male. We agreed to open up our marriage. I am low libido and wasn't very interested in sex, and he is high libido. Since we opened up our marriage, mostly younger men have been throwing themselves at me. I have been very picky, but there are a lot of them. My partner is a younger man who is unexpectedly attractive to me. He is the physical opposite of my husband. My husband is very displeased. He feels emasculated. I don't want to close my side of the relationship, but I don't want him hounding me for sex. Is there a compromise we can reach? Why does he feel this way when it was his idea and he is also getting action? In the comments, Yellow Beast Jeep says, he doesn't want to open your relationship, he wants to have sex while you don't. And OP says, that's why we opened it. He said he couldn't stand not having his needs met. If he opened things because of your low libido, it could be hitting him hard emotionally. If you were now far more sexually active with others than you were with him. You were not doing anything wrong, but I could definitely see him having anxiety about your romantic and sexual feelings towards him. OP says, I am not far more sexually active with my other partner. I'm happy with once a week, but our styles match up more than mine and my husband. My husband is explorative and likes partners who are ready to go whenever, wherever. He is happy with his partners as far as I know. They have a lot of kinks they're exploring. I need non-sexual affection, kissing, foreplay, to be in the mood. I prefer a delicate, more sensual touch. I still find my husband attractive, but I can't get aroused instantly and be ready to go. It's painful, and it feels like a chore half the time. I don't think he finds me that attractive anymore, but that's life. This is literally always what happens. Thanks for saying this. If he had done any research, he would know that this is exactly what happens. Finding a man that wants casual sex is like shooting fish in a barrel. Women who want casual sex can have their pick, and most of them won't need to bother with the constraints and headaches of a married guy. To be fair, there are lots of really shitty dates out there for women, but a lot fewer for men. I've been in a great relationship for 30 years, but before that, every woman that I dated had great qualities that exceeded mine by miles. I have always dated people that are friends first, and sexual partners second. Sometimes not even that. These posts always make me laugh at the man. Unless you're Brad Pitt level good looking, pretty much any woman is going to have more sexual partners available to her. I don't know how these guys forget what dating is like. They get what they deserve though. Why do people think this will ever work? My guess is that he convinced himself that since his wife has a low libido, she probably won't bother to go out and find someone, essentially making the open marriage just open on his side. But the way that things work, even the tiniest whiff of effort on her part, and she's going to have 1,000 guys lined up, while he's going to have to work really hard to find partners who want to have sex with a married man. And that is just how it goes with pretty much all of these stories where the marriage opens up. I can't remember one, but does anyone know if there has been a good ending to stories like this? It always feels like a zero-sum game. It always ends bad. And further from that, did he not think that she would find a partner that suits her needs? he didn't really think further ahead as to how that would emotionally affect him and how her time would now be split between her husband and a partner that is more compatible with her than her husband. Like, you're marrying this person. You have to know exactly what they're like. You've spent so much time with them. You've spent so much time analyzing what they're like. Of course, they're going to get into a situation like this. And then I wonder, when it gets into that territory, is it salvageable? Like, if your wife has a boyfriend that is in your house and is hanging out and is being really emotionally intimate with her, and they have sex every now and then, like, sure, you're getting your sexual needs met with other people, but I don't know how you would avoid boiling resentment that slowly comes from the inside. That's the obvious natural response to this, and it would never end well. Like, you're giving your wife what she wants, she's more than happy to do it, but it means jealousy and less time spent being intimate with you, with obvious signs of her attention being split right in front of your face every day. And now, onto the updates. I, 35 female, talked with my husband, 40 male, and we have more clarity on where we stand. To clarify, I am still low libido. I am happy with once a week or every 2 weeks. My husband is explorative and likes partners who are ready to go whenever, wherever. He has a lot of kinks that they're exploring. I need non-sexual affection, kissing, and foreplay to be in the mood, and I prefer a delicate and more sensual touch. I still find my husband incredibly attractive, but I can't get aroused instantly and be ready to go. It's painful, and it feels like a chore half the time. I know he doesn't find me as attractive. He told me that he needed his needs met and that I couldn't fulfill them. We opened up the relationship. My husband and I had sex once since it began. He had learned things from his partners. We both hated it. I didn't like him yanking my hair hard or wrapping his hand around my throat, let alone the kinkier stuff that he wanted. He hated how frigid I was. My husband needs sex to be affectionate, but we weren't having it, so he told me to go find affection somewhere else. I tried dating apps, but I wasn't interested in hookups. I really wanted affection, romantic or platonic. Ironically, men my age or older were looking for younger women or hookups. Younger men and women were more likely to want affection. I ended up meeting my partner in person through a mutual hobby. I also made some friends through friendship apps. My husband and I can do our own things separately, but my partner needs a lot of time, affection, and attention from me. He gets a bit territorial. I don't think he feels threatened by my husband, but my husband has remarked that my partner is always over. My husband has an apartment for his partners and lets me use the house. Finally, I talked with my husband on why he feels emasculated. He says he is over jealousy about me, but he is jealous about partners. He says that my partner and the men that I attract are far more attractive than I should have been able to get. It made no sense as I have aged and don't look as attractive as I did back when I was 20. Meanwhile, he should be in the peak of his attractiveness. He is very put together, and he expected that as an attractive older man with disposable cash, that women would be flocking to him. They do, but he doesn't like them for various reasons. Attractive young women want him to spend a lot of cash. They're not interested in an equal relationship and expect him to spoil them. They are bratty and entitled. Attractive young women who don't want money have mental health issues. Young women in the kink community or who are poly were ugly. Would-be mistresses would leave when they found out that he was in an open marriage. I didn't know what to say. I can't help him with his problem. Edit, my husband and I both thought that I would only get men interested in no-string sex or one-night stands, which I would not be interested in, rather than a close, affectionate, and frankly committed relationship that I desired and filtered for. Surprisingly, there were men who wanted the latter. Edit 2, there are a lot of comments saying that my husband has few prospects or he isn't getting as much action as he thought. That is untrue. He is a very handsome man and has been with several women since we opened up. A lot of women are attracted to him. He has sex with beautiful women, kinky women, accomplished women. He should be happy. At this point, I think he's just looking for something to be unhappy about. There is no perfect partner that meets his requirements. In the comments, Spider389 says, so basically he wants some beautiful woman in her prime who has a successful career to have disposable income for and has great mental health to settle for being his mistress. Oh yeah, can't forget the fact that he expects her to have sex on his demand and to be very kinky. It looks like he is very high standards. OP says, also someone who is kinky and sexually open to a lot of things. I told him that he should compromise, but he's unwilling because he's found plenty of women who fulfill some of his expectations, so he thinks he can find someone who will fulfill all of them. I don't think he's looking for a person, just the manifestation of all his desires. Jar Full of Farts says, I said this in the other thread, but start getting your affairs in order for the inevitable divorce. Y'all aren't having sex with each other, and your side dude is always at the house, so already baby-stepping towards that. Might as well rip the band-aid off instead of slowly pulling it on something that has no chance of working. Can we discuss how disrespectful he is to his wife too? Saying she shouldn't be able to get guys that are good-looking? What the fuck? He is so salty. He overestimated his attractiveness. He probably thought for the past few years that attractive, younger women who were just being friendly were flirting with him. It's a tough reality that women with options don't find his looks enough. Opie, I promise that you can find happiness elsewhere. Your husband is a shallow pig that nobody else of quality wants. You are already in demand. The fact that she said that sex with him is painful is very concerning. He literally gives no shits about prepping and making sure the partner is okay with things getting rougher. He needs a sex toy since he doesn't see women as people. Literally this. He wants a partner who is willing to be basically a walking sex toy, and he will settle for nothing less. And he is mad that he can't find what he wants. What an absolutely delusional asshole. Don't forget that she needs to be young and beautiful and kinky and accomplished and independent with no mental health issues and not want all his money. Oh, but also at home, OP needs to be lonely and unhappy on top of everything else, or else finding said woman won't be worth it. OP has already said it. He is just looking to be unhappy now. Yeah, it's just not looking good, is it? It just seems like this is going to end in divorce. Either way, like you keep it open or you close the marriage. I feel like you've opened that Pandora's box and done damage. This wasn't talked about in length. You guys didn't do therapy for this one. You didn't do any preparation. You just let it all out and now you're reaping what you sowed. You sowed some goddamn toxic chemicals into that soil and then you killed the crop is what you've done. You walked right up to the Monsanto chemical factory and you were like, yeah, a lot of that, thanks. That's exactly what I'm gonna sow. I trust Monsanto with my life. Nothing bad will ever happen. But at the end of the day, what do I know? All I know is that aside from one or two topics, I know exactly two things. Jack and shit. And Jack left town. And on that note, OP should probably leave town too, because the town's on fire. Let's just put it that way. Am I the asshole here for preemptively striking against splitting the bill at a group dinner? The title says it all, but here's the story. I was invited to a group dinner and decided to go. I usually decline because two couples in this group are freeloaders and they're the split the check type. They order expensive items on the menu, appetizers and cocktails, while I get a moderately priced dish and a Coke. I was told they wouldn't be there this time, and that's why I decided to go. Well, they were there. I didn't bother asking what the story was, because it didn't matter. I knew what was going to happen come check time. So I excluded myself, went to flag down a server, and asked if he would please separate my bill from the others. He agreed. When the time came to pay the bill, I handed the server my credit card and paid my bill. I tipped 25%. The freeloaders went, "Oh, I thought we were splitting like we always do." To which I said, "Oh, well, you're bad." But this prompted two other people in the group to ask for separate checks too, which the server happily did. After I paid, I told everyone good night and went on my way. The next day, I got a text from another person in the group. There were 9 total. The 2 freeloading couples and 5 solos. That I was an asshole for doing that. They do normally split the bill, as it gives everyone a chance to have a nice meal that they otherwise couldn't afford. And it also makes splitting the 20% group gratuity easier. I told her that I would not be guilted to staying within my means and not paying for mooches. Then I said the only reason why I came was because I thought that the mooch couples wouldn't be there because they've been doing this for years. Still, I'm being accused of disrupting the group vibe. Did I? I don't think so because of the 2 that also asked for separate bills. In the comments, someone says, that line about having a nice meal they couldn't usually afford is bullshit. And OP says, I was like WTF when I read that too, and then I realized she sometimes takes advantage too, though she's not as brazen as the mooch couples. I think she was implying that I could and should take advantage too from time to time. That's not how I roll though. I'm very much pay your own way. OP clarifies that this isn't treating poorer friends to dinner. They say, that's not what was going on here. We all make good money. These guys are just freeloaders. Zero decorum. Like I said, I only went because I thought they wouldn't be there. I stopped going because I noticed they were freeloaders and my feelings weren't a secret. By the way, when I invite someone out to dinner, I pay the entire bill. The 2 type of people I'd make that offer to are the type that would decline the invitation if it would wound their pride. One more piece of info. We all make roughly the same amount of money. 1. If the suggested restaurant is out of your price range and budget, you decline the invitation. 2. We go to the same restaurant, a Brazilian steakhouse. Everyone in the group likes steak, so it's an easy choice. Further in the comments, Jeepers Creepers says, not the asshole. I'm sorry, I always assumed that we were getting together to socialize as friends, not to subsidize meals for other people that cost more than what I have budgeted for myself. If that's the group vibe, then I hereby opt out of the group. The fact that others followed your lead in requesting separate checks shows that you are not the only person who feels this way. They were just looking for someone else to be brave enough to do it first. If I were you, I would contact those 2 and start a new Dutch dinner group. And OP says, great idea. I think I'll do that. We always ask for separate checks. Seems like the norm nowadays. If the freeloaders are upset, then too bad. They can order within their means. My wife and I are the ones that always order more than our friends when we go out to eat. When we're in a group setting and splitting the meal, we always offer to pay separate since we inevitably would bring the average up. And when we do split the bill, we always pay more so that the others don't have to pay for my gluttony. Those 2 couples in OP's stories are complete assholes. The same here. I hate splitting down the middle because I do have a second cocktail, appetizer, and dessert when it's a large friends' dinner party. Most of us do, so it isn't terrible. But there are always 1 or 2 who aren't hungry, don't drink, or opt out of appetizers. I never feel good about the split then. Not the asshole. Quotes, it gives everyone a chance to have a nice meal they couldn't otherwise afford? What the hell is this bullshit? Splitting the bill should happen when everyone else agrees and/or when the portions are more or less equal. It's not to subsidize others. What you did was a great way to handle this and a great way to set the tone. Okay, I get the gist of it. There's not really any more unique commentary there. These people just kinda suck. I always find it so unique though when there's situations like this and a group of people are more than happy to enable the mooches and they take personal offense when you try and break the cycle. It's like, no, I'd love them scamming me. I love being in their presence only when they're scamming me for dinner. It's the best and you shouldn't do anything about that. But this one's just taking it a step above and being like, you know what, I scam you sometimes and you never really seem to mind that either. Bro, what are you doing? Let me keep scamming you. What are you talking about? Stop being an asshole and not letting us all scam you. Stop rocking the boat. Keep the boat stable. That's my artistic interpretation of how this situation is playing out in my head, and I stand by it. But anyway, props to you, OP, for breaking the cycle. We love that for you. So yeah, slay, I guess. And now, onto the updates. I forwarded the text to two people who also asked for separate bills. They both were upset by the text and reassured me that I was not the asshole. They said they too were growing tired of the mooches and wished they stood up for themselves sooner. Then one of them said that the group vibe was disrupted when I first stopped coming. Everyone knew why, so it made the mooching the elephant in the room, and his bad for not addressing it out of his need to go along to get along. The other agreed, and then they both said they missed having me there. That made me feel so good. The three of us then reached out to the solo member who didn't ask for a separate check. This person is also the organizer. The first thing she did was apologize to me for poor communication. She admitted they changed their minds about not coming in plenty of time to inform me, but she really wanted me to come. She realized she should have when she saw the look on my face. She said she was tired of the mooching too, but was too much of a coward to say something, which only fueled their "we always do it this way" ammo. She then filled us in on what happened after we left. Turns out the other two separate bills left shortly after I did. Everyone ended up getting separate checks, which made the two mooch couples angry. They justified their mooching the same way the chick in the text did. They have expenses that we don't, and would it kill us to help them have a little bit of joy? Yeah, nah, not happening, buddy. The four of us are going to start having a new group dinner at a different restaurant. In the comments, Sky Guy says, quote, "They normally split the bill as it gives everyone a chance to have a nice meal they couldn't otherwise afford." This doesn't make sense. The meal isn't on a Groupon or anything. The only way someone pays less for their nice meal is if someone, or many someones, on that table grossly overpays. To use that so brazenly as a purported defense? Wow. Even when someone else is footing my bill and I know ahead of time, I'm consciously going cheaper than when I pay for myself. The idea of splurging on someone else's dime just does not resonate. I worked at a company where it was common for the team to go out for lunch at least a couple of Fridays a month. Most of us would pay cash, early 90s, one check, and we would toss in cash, including tip. At some point, the cash would always be short, like $9 to $10 short. We could never figure it out, and most had left to go back to the office. Finally, one of us figured it out. Bob would arrive early and have a few drinks at the bar and have them added to the tab. Then he would only pay for his meal, shorting us. The person who discovered it was his manager. We were never short again. The only time the split the check evenly worked out for a team lunch was when a group of us went weekly to a pizza buffet. Every Wednesday, it was $7.50 with a drink. No disputes about who owes what. Le Fancy Me says, "This is particularly disgusting when apparently they had a long history of having part of their meal paid for by their friends. For years, their friends paid for a part of their meal, and it was all good, friendly vibes. Then the moment they fail to treat them to a single time, it's suddenly, would it kill us to help them have a little bit of joy? As if that isn't what they've been doing for years." That's how you know you need to break off these friendships. These people are ungrateful when they receive anything and offended when they don't. Kindness is wasted on them. Kindness doesn't have to be just for the sake of reciprocation. You don't do kind things with an ulterior motive. However, when you have people in your life who aren't kind to you, it's more than fair to reevaluate whether they are worth keeping in your life. My friends and I always take turns treating each other. We never have to worry about how much each of us is paying because over the years, we've proven to look out for each other and want the best for each other. No one's trying to game the system. Sometimes I'll order a bit more, sometimes they will, but you can only do that with people who have your best interest in mind as well, and aren't just trying to get something out of it. Rusty says, "Long ago, there was a co-worker at our office who did this, only worse. We work in a huge building with a pretty nice restaurant in the lobby. About every other week, a group would go there for lunch. It was a bit pricey, so we would go when the lunch special was especially good. Every time a group headed out, this one co-worker would attach herself to the group. No one invited her because of her behavior, but she would come anyway. If we escaped before she noticed, she would come to the restaurant after us and then ask to be seated at our table. We really couldn't say no without blowing things up at the office. This restaurant also wouldn't split checks during the rush of the lunch hour, which is one of the reasons why we only went when everyone wanted the lunch special, made it easy to pay as a group. This woman would conveniently excuse herself to the restroom right before the check came, wouldn't return until the check was paid. We couldn't wait too long because we were all on a clock. She said, "Oh, I missed the check? I'll pay you back." And then she never did. One day, when she left for the restroom, we left the table one by one while she was gone, except for one or two who hung around. When she got back, they told her that since she owed those that left for lunches, she could just cover them for today. She paid, but she never tried to have lunch with us again. Some people are far too comfortable assuming that they can do whatever they want because it would be awkward or unbecoming for others to address their behavior directly. Honestly, we all kinda gave her a pass the first time or two because we suspected she had a deadbeat boyfriend that she was supporting, but she became so blatant that we got pissed. I mean, she would finagle her way in and sit there smiling and eating. No one would look at her or talk to her. It was obvious that we didn't want her there, but she had no shame, no embarrassment at all. Oh, I just got second-hand embarrassment from reading that. Good job figuring out a way to make her pay and stop coming. What a leech. And once again, good riddance to good trash, I say. Where people like this find the audacity is completely beyond my realm of comprehension. I'm glad that this story that we covered didn't go south like some stories do. Although, it's good content when it does, but it's not good for my conscience being like, Christ, we could have been adults in this situation. So, thank God, people were adults in this situation and did the right thing. I can also empathize with not wanting to make a scene, not wanting to cause conflict because I'm very much conflict avoidant myself. I would like to think that in a perfect world, I could be the one to stand up and be like, you know what, I'll just get my own separate check, haha, you guys can do your own thing, I don't want to pay for your meals, but I don't know, I don't think I would. I'm a bit of a shy little Andy. I think that it would take a while, and me getting to the end of my tether, probably not years like OP has dealt with, but maybe a few weeks or months of dealing with things like that before I put my foot down, I'd like to think. I don't know about that. What about you guys? Would you guys do the same? I'm just rambling. Congratulations, OP, for having that titanium spine, though. Thumbs up for that one. And I hope your dinners with your mates go really well in the future, because it's a lovely little tradition to have, catching up with mates for dinner every now and then. Our next post is by user ThrowRA Wife and Friend, titled, "My wife, female 32, recently had wine spilled on her by my best friend, female 31, during our wedding. Now she is demanding that I, male 33, cut ties." Ali and I met through a mutual friend in 2012 during a pub quiz at university. I was quite attracted to her and actually told her so at the end of the evening, but she told me that she had a boyfriend even though she was flattered all the same. Fast forward 3 years later, I meet Eliza at the Edinburgh Fringe, and we just clicked immediately. Politics, music, cinema, whatever the subject approached, there was a spark that I'd never felt with anyone else. Like she just made sense with me. Her personality was just vivid. It's hard to describe, but I'll try. On first impression, she was so knowledgeable and enthusiastic, I was taken aback by her intensity. From that point onwards, we were inseparable, and I was dead certain of our future together long before we got engaged. Enter Ali again. I start a new job at an advertising firm with a position in web design, and she was one of the only people that I knew. At first, it was a little bit awkward given our history, especially considering that she was now married to the boyfriend that she was dating back then, but there was no one else that I knew at the firm, and we both had partners at this point. So it couldn't hurt to be friends, right? And to be honest, I'm glad because I feel like our chemistry as friends superseded any potential we might have had as a couple. She's clever and has a bit of a cheeky personality. I'm quite dry and sarcastic myself, so I reckon we have a pretty fun dynamic. Eliza doesn't seem to feel that way though. Sometimes when it's been the three of us, she has expressed a feeling of being left out or that Ali has been making fun of her. I don't see it. It's just our dynamic, but there have been a couple of nights where Eliza has been in tears because of something that Ali has said. One time, Eliza got out of her seat, and Ali sat down where she was sitting to show me a video on YouTube. When Eliza came back in, she saw Ali leaning next to me and was upset for the rest of the night. Sometimes there have been a few times when Ali has said something that Eliza has read as a come-on. Like when I said that I missed swimming because I felt out of shape, Ali said, "Well, the two of us should go together," with a playful punch. Eliza didn't say anything at the time, but her discomfort was visible. Things really came to a head, though, on our wedding day, and I think the stress of it really got to Eliza. During the reception, Ali bumped into her, and red wine spilled all over her dress. She was bawling the entire evening. We're now on our honeymoon, and Eliza has said that she hopes for a fresh start, but she feels like Ali might have spilled her wine on purpose. She's suggesting that I cut ties with her, and if I'm honest, I'm not sure that I want to. Where do I go from here? In the comments, No Yeah Thanks says, "The number of times I've bumped into someone and spilt my drink on them is exactly once in my entire life, and I was a shit-faced teenager. You are either astoundingly naive, or Ali is somehow the unluckiest woman in the world to accidentally spill her red wine on the bride on her wedding day. I think you know which one is more likely. Your wife won't be staying your wife for much longer unless you start actually listening to her and stop dismissing all of her fears as baseless insecurities." OP replies, "Ali was getting a drink from the bar. Eliza had taken off of part of her gown for dining and dancing purposes and was leaving our bedroom to return to our table. They bumped into each other, and Eliza had a huge red stain over her dress. Ali made an offhand joke and then fled, and Eliza ran up to me in bits and pieces. It sounded really bad when Eliza told me, and she was in bits about the wine spilling all over her dress, and I went to Ali and asked her what the hell she was up to. Ali was so mortified and told me that she wanted to sink into a hole. She's dyspraxic and has struggled with falling at impromptu moments. I've actually witnessed it happening before. There was a meeting at work and she gets our colleagues coffee. The moment she came in, she tripped and fell, coffee flying everywhere." Rip Dirtbag says, "Ali bumped into your wife in her wedding dress, spilling wine all over it, and made an offhand joke before fleeing? What kind of response is that?" OP says, "She's a really awkward person and doesn't know how to interact with people sometimes. There have been times that I have been upset with her because of how glib she's been about personal issues." So, someone who has a habit of accidentally saying or doing things that make your wife cry accidentally also managed to spill red wine over her white dress on the biggest day of her life, and you don't think that that's at all suspicious? If you knew, and imagine here that you somehow knew for certain that she had done it on purpose, what would your reaction be? Would it change how you thought about her? Give it some thought. OP says, "I would be really hurt if Ali was doing it on purpose. I love Eliza and want us to be happy, and I can see that I've really effed up here multiple times. Ali is a good friend, but if she's deliberately being a wind-up merchant and harming my marriage, then I'll have to cut the cord and stop chumming up to her so much." Sorry, wind-up merchant is so funny. Anyway, Eliza sometimes says to me that she can intuit people's opinions and feelings within minutes of meeting them. I've never been like that. My folks have always said that I'm terrible with picking up on basic things. I was at an aunt's house when I was a kid, talking her ear off, and she said, "Oh, it's getting late," multiple times. It was only until my mum dragged me out that I picked up that she wanted me to leave. Symbol Farron says, "It really sounds like you're putting your friend first. No wonder your wife is unhappy. She comes back in tears from hanging out and you still invite Ali to the wedding? What was that conversation like?" OP says, "She got really upset one time during banter because Ali and I like to roast each other regularly, and Ali roasted her a little too hard, I guess. We were singling out things to insult each other on, and the subject went to Eliza, and Eliza mentioned that she had webbed feet. Since then, Ali's called her Leapfrog. When I say it, Eliza takes it in good stride, but when Ali says it, it's a massive problem. I don't get it. Eliza suggested that Ali's being serious when she says it, as opposed to when I do, but she roasts me the same way too. She said that I looked like a juggalo's poodle that day because I was wearing baggy metal clothes and hadn't styled my hair, so it was frizzing all over the place. Why haven't you stuck up for your wife all those times that Ali's hurt her? OP says, I guess because I didn't know that I needed to? It seems like it's a perspective thing. Eliza is a passionate person who cries at deluxe puppy adverts, and the intensity is great for a partner, but it can cause problems with friendships. She reads a lot into things that her friends do, thinking that it's intentional, and when she talks to them about what they did, they will be completely shocked and unaware that they hurt her. Ali is a very sarcastic person in general, who rolls with the punches, and to me it reads like they struggle to gel, rather than intentional cruelty on Ali's part. But for what it's worth, Ali has told me that she's really keen on Eliza, and thinks she's a top girl. Yeah, I know, before you come at me, I know her name's Ailey. Weird English people names, alright? I was just so deep into the reading that I didn't realize that it was Ailey. I'm not changing it, I don't care. Call me a wind-up merchant all you want, okay? Call me a juggalo's puppy all you want, I do not care. I think there are several ways that we can interpret Ailey's behavior and OP's kind of processing of everything. I think OP has very much spelled out the fact that they are very much unaware of a lot of things in general. Their history with Ailey and willingness to foster a good relationship with them has put blinders on. You can see so many accidents and things that are red flags, I'd say. I call them red flags. Happening in front of your face continuously that can it's upsetting your wife to an even higher degree every time, and you're like, she's just clumsy. That's just how she is. She'll be right. Eliza, chill out. She's just a wind-up merchant, you know? It's not that deep. Stop crying. Stop crying on your wedding day. It was just a funny little joke. I know she spilled red wine on your dress and ran away. It's just a joke. It was all just a joke. She didn't mean it. What kind of denial concoction are you sipping, OP? Because that's probably the strongest strength that I've ever seen on these stories. I don't know how you can continue to defend Ailey in this situation. She has gone above and beyond to be outlandish towards your wife. That's just my opinion though, and we all know that I know two things in life. Mr. Jack and Mr. Shit. Call me as non-self-aware as OP in this situation, but I think that he needs to cut Ailey off. Or just very low contact with Ailey and not hang out with her with your wife. But even then, that might be a bit troublesome. Don't know what to do, but the damage has been done, and good luck reversing any of the damage and making it right, because this... Ooh, buddy, that sucks for you, man. And now, onto the updates. You know, I posted here recently looking for guidance on how to deal with my wife's anxiety and hurt revolving around my friend, and... seems like I got read the riot act. Probably rightly so, he says as he's scratching his head like an anime character. It didn't go so well. I have been completely inconsiderate of Eliza's feelings and how she feels about these roastings, and you alerted me to the possibility that Ailey is doing this just to be a little shit. I sat down with Eliza, and we had an in-depth conversation about the wedding incident. I got her to describe the event step by step in her own words. She says, I was leaving the lobby in the dining venue, and Ailey was a little tipsy at this point, and already stumbling from the bar. She was initially walking slower, but seemed to speed up when she saw me. We collided into each other, and she pulled an ashamed face, and made a joke about me looking like Rosamund Pike in Gone Girl before scurrying away. She seemed embarrassed in the moment, but she didn't apologize to me. It's playing out like a little anime scene. Oh, golly geez, sorry about that. By the way, did I tell you look like Rosamund Pike from Gone Girl? Anyway, gotta bounce. I heard from other people that she was appalled about what happened, but I never heard anything from her directly. It just paints a picture of habitual microaggressions from her that has festered into this ugly anxiety whenever she's around. I pretty much predict whenever I'm in her vicinity that there will be weird behavior or uncomfortable moments, and I don't want to continue being in a situation where my husband brings someone into my home who resents me simply for existing. That was a real gut punch to me. For me, I always felt like it was just insecurity about me fancying Ailey for 10 minutes yonks ago, but Eliza is really torn up about this. She's said that the honeymoon has been miserable because the memory has been swirling around in her mind, and she feels like I'm gonna downplay or dismiss it. No one should feel like they can't just be themselves, especially not at home. I didn't realize what a shithead that I'd been, and I apologized profusely to Eliza and decided to phone up Ailey to confront her about the wedding incident. So I did it, and it didn't go well. Basically, I told her that Eliza was really hurt by the wedding dress incident, that she had been hurt by her behavior for a long time, and that if she can't bring herself to apologize to Eliza's face, at least she should pay towards getting the stain removed. And if she couldn't bring herself to even do that, then our friendship had to stop. To say that Ailey was taken aback would be an understatement. She was completely blindsided, asking what was wrong with their interactions that made me want to go to such extremes. I mentioned the leapfrog comment, and she went, "But even you call her that," stating that Eliza called her Garfield because of her weight and bright orange hair. When I mentioned that she ran towards Eliza and didn't apologize for spilling wine on her, she got really upset and started shouting that she wasn't running at her to hurl wine at her dress. She was running from her because she didn't want to talk at that moment because she feels like Eliza hates her and she doesn't know how to go about it. She started pointing out times when Eliza had been funny towards her, and I basically said, "Right, but this isn't about when Eliza has hurt you. This is about when you've hurt Eliza, and it's gotten so bad that it needs to be talked about." And she started laughing. It was really uncomfortable. I know she does this when she's anxious about something. Eliza asked me if things were okay from the other room, and Ailey demanded to know if this was a setup, and when I tried to explain myself, she hung up. Her husband even phoned me, insisting that he would pay for the damage if it is less stressful for me. I told Ewan, the husband, that I appreciated that, but I needed to know where Ailey stood regarding what I just said. Ewan told me that Ailey makes jokes whenever she's anxious or uncomfortable, and that they have rowed about it in the past, but the wedding dress incident is a major issue, and that he wants to smooth things over as much as I do. So him and Ailey will pay towards dry cleaning, whilst a condolences hamper is sent to Eliza. Eliza was relieved that Ewan was so understanding, but she wasn't thrilled about Ailey's reaction. Basically said that the Garfield comment was always about her hair and never about her weight, and that she was deliberately trying to make it seem like the bad behavior went both ways. I don't think it's went both ways either, because I've never noticed Eliza roasting Ailey in any real way. Eliza has suggested that we try marriage counseling. I was a bit shocked at first because we've only been married for a month, lol. But I decided maybe that's the way forward, because if Eliza reckons that we need counseling for it, then it's clearly a problem. So yeah, Eliza and I are going to try marriage counseling, and my future with Ailey is uncertain. In the comments, Seeking Beskar says, "I remember seeing your post and responding to several of your comments. Don't you think that it's really odd that your friend, after ruining someone's wedding dress, made a joke like that? People don't usually think of things like that right after doing something that bad. For Ailey to then paint a picture of being appalled for other people, but to not show your wife that or offer your wife an apology? It's really not that hard to see that Ailey has no respect for your partner. Literally none. I don't even understand why Ailey is still a part of your life at all. Who remains friends with someone who repeatedly makes their partner cry? You're not really gonna believe someone behaving normally in this situation would be blindsided by your call, right? You would expect a call about cleaning a dress, if anything, or you yourself would be making a call to apologize. I think it's quite clear that Ailey was blindsided because she feels like she can get away with this shit. How do you spill red wine on someone while running away from them? Her story doesn't even make sense. Your future with Ailey is uncertain? Cut the cord before this ends your marriage. Keeping someone around who ruined your wife's experience of her wedding day? Who you recognize has actively hurt your wife? And there's not a chance that happened unknowingly? Someone who is literally trying to tell you the woman she was bullying makes her uncomfortable. What a terrible idea. Clown in a Circus says, Quote, I don't even understand why Ali is still a part of your life at all. Who remains friends with someone who repeatedly makes their partner cry? Seriously. I read that in the first post and immediately did a double take. Do you even like your partner? Why are you friends with someone who constantly makes fun of her to the point where she cries? Even Ewan thinks his wife's behavior wasn't okay. I'm somewhat bewildered that marriage has survived. Yeah, if Ailey's habits of making awkward jokes when she's embarrassed, read when she's done something embarrassing to someone else, is not limited to Eliza, then her husband is a very patient man. Having a spouse that makes awkward jokes, which seems to be a very nice way to put hurtful, malicious comments, must be really difficult, especially during family gatherings or work functions. The anxiety of not knowing what asshole thing is going to come out of your husband or wife's mouth sounds like hell. Absolutely. I've no idea how Ali got that guy to marry her, if she's always like this. I mean, I like a good banter, sure, but there's a time and a place, and you do it with your own friends who are into this, not with your friend's spouse. Sky Guy says, quote, Eliza and I are going to try marriage counseling, and my future with Ailey is uncertain. If he's still uncertain, then he really needs the counseling. Ailey is a snake. Oh, you guys, that's just how Ailey is. We can't hold her accountable because, you know. I used to use humor to deflect or when things were uncomfortable. I thought that I was lightening situations and not making it weird. Thankfully, a friend from high school spoke with me, privately and kindly, and told me that it sometimes comes across as insensitive. Like, I get it. Sometimes I'm still that kid who is absolutely terrified inside, and I want to crack a joke so badly. I have learned to listen, fight the urge, and say with sincerity, I'm sorry, that wasn't my intention, but I understand now that it was hurtful, thoughtless, and shocking. I won't do it again. Ailey needs to stop being coddled, and OP needs to stop being an effing idiot. That's where I think I'll end with that one. I agree wholeheartedly. I would hope that those of us that crack jokes in absolutely terrible situations do get to that point where we do listen, we do fight the urge, and we are sincere with our apologies. I know I've struggled with that in the past before because, conflict avoidance and hard to diffuse situations sometimes, huh? To me, it sounds like OP and Ewan are very much enablers in this situation, and perhaps both of them are just so thick-skulled that they don't even realize that Ailey's behavior is a problem. I don't know how it's possible. I want it to be impossible, but unfortunately reality is stranger than fiction, and maybe this whole time it's just been a bit. OP is just a wind-up merchant, because I want that to be much more of a reality than him just being an absolute nitwit. He's English, come on, we've I don't know where I was going with that one. Sorry, English people. But yeah. Marriage counseling, absolute must. He's yet another victim of the, counseling's actually to fix problems, not to maintain a healthy relationship. This is a very good time, actually. Maybe marriage counseling a few months ago, but marriage counseling now, very good idea, OP. I highly recommend it. I wouldn't know, because I haven't been to marriage counseling before, but I've read on Reddit that it's pretty good, so take my word for it. Posted by user DangerousEast6962, titled, My Wife and Her Ex-Husband. My wife, 45 female, was married to Bob, 46 male, for almost a decade. They got divorced 12 years ago. There's a story behind it. Bob and my wife were college sweethearts. They got married very young and were happy. However, tragedy struck and Bob got into an accident which led him to be paralyzed from the waist down. My wife was 29 and Bob was 30 back then. My wife took care of him for 3 years, but at the end, she just gave up. She told Bob that she couldn't do this anymore. She knows she sounds selfish, but she always wanted kids, and Bob couldn't have kids after the accident. She wanted to get a divorce, but promised him that she will always be there for him. She just wants to be selfish for once. Bob, although he was upset, understood. They split amicably. My wife stood by her promise and still visited Bob. She was still a part-time caretaker for him before she met me. I, 40 male, meet her 2 years after her divorce. While we were dating, she made her situation with Bob clear that she will continue to see him. I know a lot of guys would be skeptical about this, but I just loved her at the moment I saw her. Her kindness and compassion towards others is what drew me towards her. After we became official, she only went to see Bob once a week, sometimes even twice. I did not mind then. In fact, I liked her ex very much. He didn't treat me like I was the other man. He was always welcoming towards me, and he even showed me his library. I always felt bad for what happened to him. He was a great man, and life had just betrayed him. When we got married, I could still see the sadness in his eyes, although there was a mix of emotions from him. I always felt that Bob never stopped loving my wife, and to some degree, my wife still has feelings for him. I know that she loves me a lot. She has always treated me like I'm her king, and always showed her love to me. Seriously, I am really lucky to have her in my life. Together, we have 2 children, 7 male, 5 female. My kids are also close with Bob. Everything was fine until a few months ago. We got the news that Bob has cancer. It was at the last stage, and he might not even survive a full year, but there is still a possibility. The news really shattered my wife. She had stopped eating properly and being her usual cheerful self. I understand it, but here's the part where I'm a little uncomfortable with. She now visits him very often. Most of the time I'll be there with her, and then a few weeks after the discovery, she told me she wants to shift into his house. She told me that Bob feels lonely, and his siblings do not care about him since his accident, and it'll be better if she would just stay with him. I objected. We had an argument, and we reached a compromise that we are both going to stay there. So I've been staying at Bob's house for 2 weeks now. 4 days ago, we were all having dinner, and after we were finished, I decided to do the dishes. My wife and Bob were chatting, and the conversation went like this. He says, "I really missed this. I miss talking to you like the good old times." And she says, "Me too. Remember one time we talked so much that we were late for work the next day? It wasn't even important." And he says, "What happened to us, Lily? I mean, we were something. People would use us as an example. I miss you a lot. I never thought that when I was dying, you wouldn't be my wife anymore." And my wife replies, "I know. At one point I thought that too, but life had other plans. I mean, I love you, but I love my family more. It wasn't the same after your accident." It is as if they forgot that I was in the kitchen and listening in to their conversation. My wife was normal after that. We went to bed and kissed each other goodnight. Between this, she wanted to make love to me, but I just rejected her. I don't know how to feel about all of this. I trust my wife. I know she is a strong woman with good morals. She will never cheat on me. I know she's just sympathetic towards Bob because their relationship was beyond just exes. They are best friends. I feel like an intruder between them, and I think no matter what my opinion is about all of this, I will always be the bad guy. In the comments, Beneficial Syrup says, "You are not the bad guy in any way, OP. Please know that. You need to talk to your wife about what you heard. Then you need to get counseling with her and possibly Bob. Because when Bob does pass, you want to have everything settled. Because she may start saying shit like, 'I lost the most important man to me.' And then you're going to be severely pushed over the edge." And OP says, "Therapy sounds good. I guess I knew deep down it would come to this." OP replies to a deleted comment and says, "I don't think you understand. You're just assuming. She divorced because she was full-time his caretaker and couldn't do that any longer. Their marriage failed for that reason. There was no intimacy, no romance. She had a version of what kind of family she wanted, and she has been clear with him since the beginning. She was young back then and had her whole life ahead of her. Now we have children, and our situation is very different from her first marriage. I know that if I get injured, she will not leave me. She is also in a better financial position than she was 12 years ago, and we can hire nurses if one of us becomes injured. And I don't mind her going once a week to see Bob. Bob is also my friend too. I also visit him sometimes along with my wife. She spends time with me a lot. She has no other family except for Bob. Farmer Scrooge says, "This story makes me sad for all of you. It's understandable. She's been completely upfront about this with you. She loves him and feels guilty that she couldn't stay with him and have the life that she wanted. It's very sad. You would not have your wife if not for this accident. I wouldn't like this arrangement. It would be very uncomfortable, but you did sign up for this. How are your kids processing all of this?" And OP replies, "They are mostly sad. Bob is getting weaker every second. They don't know he'll be dying, but they are happy to see Bob." Scarecrow25 says, "This is difficult for many reasons. Reading your post, it almost sounds like you want to be jealous, but I doubt that's really it. If it were jealousy, I feel that you would have had problems long ago. Have you considered that you're grieving for Bob, the man that you called a friend? Is it easier to be upset or hurt at your wife than to face his demise? It doesn't sound like there's anything for you to worry about from this relationship itself. It's just difficult emotionally, and that's understandable. You really should see a therapist to help you work through your emotions so you can be there to support your wife and children when he passes away. It won't be helpful if you're still suppressing both the hurt of knowing that your wife loves someone else and the loss of a friend." And OP says, "I'm devastated that I'm losing a dear friend of mine. I mean, Bob never ever tried to hurt me or make me feel like a third man or a man who came in between him and my wife. In 2020, I went into a deep depression due to the stress of losing my job in COVID. Bob, even though he was disabled, helped me and motivated me to keep going. He's a really good guy. Maybe you're right. I'm still in a mix of emotions." FS Mertz says, "I don't quite understand what the problem is here. Your wife's relationship with Bob is unique, driven by external events. He has been very understanding considering that she up and abandoned her marriage to him. The fact that the three of you are able to support him to the end is very honorable, and your wife's accepting your presence in Bob's house shows you have a strong marriage. The conversation you were sharing bits of is very touching. I would not feel threatened at all by it. Bob is frickin' dying. He's going to say anything, and what he said is very understandable, and your wife's response is sensitive too. I'm sure she has a color of love for him. He didn't do anything negative to her, unlike what she did to him. Perhaps her spending time helping him in his last days is her way of rectifying her leaving the marriage. So, what's your issue here?" Additionally, this is a reflection of how good this woman would treat OP if the same would have happened to him. She has a good heart. Frankly, the two need this closure, and when Bob is gone, she'll have a clear conscience. But if he's disabled, she'll abandon him. She hasn't abandoned Bob. He's got cancer, and she moved her family in with him to care for him. She never stopped caring for him and taking care of him. Man, I'm more sympathetic to Bob. No offense, but he had to watch his wife leave him and move on because of something out of his control, and he has to watch you and her have kids and be a family, the life that he wanted. Then he has to die early. Life sucks sometimes. Well, when you look at it that way, yeah, sucks to be Bob. Man, it does actually make me feel quite torn up inside for Bob. That conversation, I don't know, it struck a real deep chord inside of me, and I just feel so incredibly sad for him. And you know, on the bright side, yeah, OP's wife is coming in to take care of him and hasn't stopped caring for him her whole life, but that's only a consolation to the life that could have been. I yearn for the life that Bob could have had. And as everyone else said here before, it's through no fault of his own. She didn't do anything particularly wrong. I feel like she's making the best of her circumstances. She's doing the most she can while still putting herself first. But Bob has done nothing wrong, and that's just life sometimes. Life is so cruel. Life can sometimes as well be amazing and the best thing ever, but For Bob in this situation, I feel so bad for him. To get cancer on top of everything else as well as being paralyzed. I want to go out and hug Bob. Man, this sucks. And now, on to the update. Alright, I took some of the advice that you guys gave me, although I was disappointed to see so many emotional people calling me and my wife names without even trying to understand the situation. This will be a long one. Before I give an update, I want to make a few things clear. My wife is awful because she abandoned her husband? No, I disagree with that. There's a space between terminating a marriage and abandoning. She didn't abandon Bob. She was right by his side. She was not just his wife. I can understand why. She was 29 when this happened, and at 29, people are still starting their lives. But her life and her husband's life ended there. You expect her to give up her life, her hopes, and her dreams? And what then? Resent Bob for the rest of her life? Caretaking can be exhausting. She was emotionally, physically, and financially drained while she was taking care of Bob. Would you have still expected her to give up her life if this happened when she was 21? It's not like she didn't try. They went to therapy and did counseling, but there was no romance, no intimacy. They just grew apart because they both had different dreams. Despite all of that, she was still in his life. She still took care of him. She could have disappeared after her divorce, but she didn't. That's what you call abandonment? Also, the reason why I didn't give all the details was because this was not about her old marriage. But now, I'm making it clear because people are assuming things. I know most of your things are black and white, but from a logical perspective, I don't think she's wrong. My wife and Bob are having an emotional affair. Also, no. People who have affairs are secretive. My wife was never like that. She was always upfront and honest about her relationship with Bob, and how she would still want to care about him. I do not think that there is any affair. Just because she said she still loves him? So what? She says I love you to her kids, her friends, and even my mother. That doesn't mean that she's having an affair with all of them. She has kept a boundary between Bob and her. She doesn't love him romantically, but like a friend or a family. She doesn't have her own family. She has been no contact with her abusive family since she was 18. Bob was the only family she has ever known. If my wife wanted kids, why didn't she just adopt or do IVF? Like I said in my previous post, she was financially drained. IVF costs a lot here, and adoption with a disabled parent is hard. The agencies hesitate to give a child when one parent is not functional. Then again, they would still need money. My wife wanted children of her own, and if they had chosen either of those routes, she would have been the one taking care of the baby most of the time, along with her husband. Bob almost went broke during all the caretaking. It wasn't until a few years ago that he started a remote job that allowed him to stay at home and earn. My wife will leave me if the same thing happened to me. I doubt it, but even if she does, I would understand it. We talked about this before getting married, that if we have tried every possible option, then one of us can divorce. I do not want to be a burden on my own wife. And we're both in our 40s. We've pretty much accomplished every goal in life. So if tragedy does strike, then we're prepared. Bob loves my wife. He could, but there's not much that I can do about it. I mean, I can't order him to stop loving, but he does have some feelings for her. Whether it's limerence or not, I do not know. Though Bob was in a long-term relationship for 5 years with a girl, I do not think his love for my wife is the same as romantic love. What about my kids? Our kids are here for a while, and they live with their grandmother. I do not see why people are acting like we abandoned our kids. Our kids love Bob. They do not know that Bob is my wife's ex-husband. They only know that Bob is my wife's friend. They are not mature enough to understand it. And now, onto the update. I took your advice. I just wanted to do the talk when she wasn't stressed. I texted my wife to meet us in our house, not Bob's. I ordered her favorite food and set up the table. When she arrived, she was surprised to see the setup, and I just told her that since she has been stressed lately, I wanted to do something good for her. I called my mother. The kids are with her. Bob is staying at the hospital today, so he's fine too, and she can relax. She was happy and thanked me. We talked about our life, and she vented about her job and everything that's been going on. Then I dropped the bomb about her conversation with Bob. I told her about the conversation she was having with Bob and how it made me feel. Well, I like Bob, and I know she loves me too, but I cannot help but imagine her wanting to be with him, and it's really like a stab. Though I do appreciate her wanting to help Bob, I want to enforce boundaries. I cannot live forever in her ex's house. We have our own house. She needs to think about our kids too. I feel like day by day I'm losing her. This is just my concern and not insecurity. I expected her to flip out and become defensive, but she just cried a lot. She said that she didn't mean to hurt me. She knows she went too far with wanting to stay with Bob. She says she doesn't want Bob to feel alone. That's why she proposed it. And she feels sorry for not listening. She didn't mean to hurt me. She's been thinking about the living situation, and I told her it's not enough. I wanted us to talk to a therapist. This whole thing is just a burden on me. She got scared and said, "Why? Nothing's wrong with us." And I told her I want to do this, just to make sure that we're on the same page and that there's no hard feelings on either side. Then I asked her if she still wishes to be with Bob, because if he didn't have the accident, they would still be together. She told me that she has wasted time thinking about what if. She knows we'd probably never meet, or she and Bob could have divorced for a different reason. The thing is, she doesn't want to think about it. What happened just happened. She loves me and doesn't want to be with Bob. Bob has a place in her heart as a friend and as family. When she said she loves Bob, she doesn't mean she's in love with him. She hasn't thought about him in a romantic way since their divorce. The only reason she stuck with Bob was because they promised to each other that no matter what happens, they will be with each other, even as a friend. She proposed that we move back home and only stay 1 day a week in Bob's house. She might do occasional visits when it's needed. I agreed, but I still insisted on going to therapy, and she agreed to it. We have yet to tell Bob about the news, but I'm sure he'll understand. And before you ask, yes, Bob has a full-time nurse. He has family, but they hardly ever visit him. I'll probably not make an update again, and I'm done. No matter how much I try to explain it to you guys, you would only stick to seeing things in either black or white. Apparently in the Reddit world, 2 exes remaining good friends is considered an emotional affair. They don't need context to understand things. I'm also very much drained emotionally. Bob is also my friend. Seeing him getting weak every day just makes me feel hopeless too. In the comments, Beneficial Syrup says, "I'm glad that you had that conversation with her. I'm rooting for you. And yes, therapy. I always feel like therapy is like an oil change. It is maintenance. If you don't do it, you're screwed, but if you keep at it, you'll be running smoothly." I have a few therapists in my family, so maybe their influence. She may need individual therapy too. There is a lot to unpack for her. And OP says, "Yes, we talked about that. Sorry I forgot to mention that in my post. I told her that she needs to face the ugly reality that Bob might not be in our lives. She needs to prepare for that. She needs therapy for herself to navigate those feelings. And she agreed to that." OK Breakfast says, "Communication. As much as people would like to vilify the two of you, you are both admirably navigating a sea of grey and doing the best that you can. I'm disappointed by this sub's inability to do nuance. Marriage is nuanced. Marriage requires comfort with grey areas. Marriage requires constant give and take. Thank you for sharing with us." And OP says, "Yup, I think people are way too self-righteous to think about any other possible solution. Yes, morally, she should have stayed with her ex and spent the rest of her life taking care of him no matter how emotionally draining it is, but practically, it makes no sense. You're a good man, and so is your wife. People who agree don't tend to comment. I read your first post, and it gave me all the feels, but I didn't comment. People who want to complain often do. Just ignore them." Yelzy says, "This is how mature, reasonable adults handle life situations. Your wife's conversation with Bob wasn't okay, but the way that you handled it and her reaction means that there is a path forward. I wish you guys and Bob the best of luck." OP says, I agree, but she told me that it was just nostalgia, but the conversation we had was needed. It made some things clear. Such a bittersweet story. Everyone here feels so much more mature than I am. I would never be able to make the choices that they made. Neither could I, but I think it's good to know when you'd be incapable of doing something in a healthy way. Opie and his wife, and Bob, sound like genuinely good and decent people. I hope Bob's passing is peaceful and that things work out for OP and his wife. They sound like they have healthy communication, and Bob could easily leverage his cancer diagnosis against OP, but doesn't seem to be the type to do so. That is certainly a complicated situation, but not impossible. And again, I kinda want to roll up in a ball and cry because there is no winning in this situation, and, I didn't, when I read that comment, think that what they did was wrong. Like, the conversation felt a bit too real, and it did feel a bit awkward with OP there, because it's like, obviously, this isn't something that OP would want to hear, but what do you do? We've seen situations like this before, and there was another story where that love letter from the deceased ex came out, and it just completely destroyed, I think it was the wife in that story? And I guess at that point, I thought it was selfish of them to have sent that letter beyond the grave. But there's always nuance in life, isn't there? So in this situation, I think it's okay for them to have that not okay conversation because OP and the wife talked about it afterwards and agreed to a solution going forward. Yeah, I'm thrown through a loop because this is such a mature way to handle everything. I don't ever see this. I see children bickering and screaming at each other and just craziness, and I'm so touched by people having normal, acceptable, emotional, amazing solutions to these problems. I wish we had more stories like this, but at the same time, I do love content. I'm just going to close it with saying I wish you and your wife the best going forward. I hope that Bob passes peacefully and surrounded by those that he loves. It's never easy losing someone close to you, but that's just life sometimes. Am I the asshole here for not moving out so my roommate can get his sister's kids out of foster care? My roommate and I rent a pretty nice 2-bedroom apartment together. We pay practically nothing in rent as we have a deal to keep an eye on things and take care of facilities. It's a great deal because it doesn't take more than a few hours a week and we take turns. My roommate's sister lost custody of her kids, 2 girls, 1 boy, and may be facing prison time. My roommate wants to get them out of the foster system since they got put in separate homes. My roommate is their only family. Their dads aren't even in the picture, so there's no one else that can take them in. The social worker gave him some requirements, has issues with me because I'm an unrelated adult man, and because I have a record of substance abuse. Also because of the ages of the kids, my roommate needs to have at least 2 bedrooms. He cannot afford a 2-bedroom place except this one because of the great deal that we get, which is why he wants me to move out. He says, well, the fact is, he needs the apartment more than me. I get that he's in a bad position, but rent is insanely expensive around here. If I moved out, renting even a single bedroom elsewhere would be way more expensive than renting this apartment by myself. I would like to keep living here so I can save money, so I can hopefully one day be able to buy a place of my own. That's just never going to happen if I have to pay market rate rent. I was also living here first, so I don't feel like it's fair that I should have to be the one to move. In the comments, Marlonika says, doesn't your great deal for rent have a taking care of things condition? I assume having 3 kids at home may be a deal breaker for the landlord anyway. Regardless, if he can't afford to take the kids in, he shouldn't. I'll be honest, this is a heartbreaking situation, and not leaving the house will make you feel like an asshole. But you're entitled to be an asshole given the circumstances. And OP replies, I don't know about the landlord, but the taking care of things doesn't really take that much time at all. Commercial Curve says, depending on the ages of the kids, since they are different sexes, they may be required to have separate rooms. So your roommate would actually need a 3-bedroom place. That was the concern when we were contemplating getting some nibblings placed with us. And OP says, their social worker just said at least 2 bedrooms. Your roommate may also be eligible for a stipend if he provides foster care for the kids. That stipend can go towards paying for a suitable place. And OP says, no, he's family, so he doesn't. Is social services going to be paying him like a regular foster family? If so, he can afford a new place. OP says, no, I guess relatives don't get money, but he's going to apply for SNAP. Where was Mum living with these kids? He could move there with them instead? I'm not sure what her living situation was before her loss of custody, but the kids were somewhere. Not the asshole. Hoping for the best for your friend and his kiddos though. And OP says, not an option. Your roommate needs to talk to a social worker to get set up for housing, food stamps, Medicaid, daycare, and whatever he needs to do to care for these children. Are the grandparents around? Can they assist in some way? It seems like there should be other family members who can help with this situation. And OP says, as I said, my roommate is their only family. Your roommate should reach out to social services. They may be able to get him placed in subsidized housing and get assistance for fostering the children. If anything, he may wind up having more resources than you when it comes to affordable housing, so he should leave. I work in community outreach. He will not qualify for subsidized housing until he has custody of those kids. The system is a quagmire and overwhelmed. Housing is one of the hardest resources to find. I work for child welfare. My office could pay the difference in rent for up to 6 months until he got guardianship finalized and could qualify for housing programs. It might not be the same everywhere, but in my jurisdiction, we do have funding for that if it means preserving a family. I was waiting for that last line. You found this stellar deal. Would be very insane for him to come in and ask you to completely jack up your life for his situation. I feel for the kids, but he's got to figure out a different path. I think I'm pretty much on the same bandwidth as that last comment there. We are currently within the grips of an insane economic situation. You've found an absolute diamond of a deal that doesn't even take that much effort. There is no way that you should give up your living circumstances here. Just comparing his chances at finding other opportunities for affordable housing and government-subsidized programs, he has such a better run at it than you do. I don't see why you would give that up. You are in a much tougher spot of finding affordable housing if you leave. And yeah, I feel like anyone can say, well, the morally right thing to do is to give up your spot in a house and do what the social worker recommended there because you, with your history of substance abuse, can't stay. These kinds of moral problems are just that. Big problems, and there is never an easy answer. There could be even more that you've left out, or that he has left out of the situation that would swing the balance in either way, but as it stands right now, I'm on your side, and I don't think you're an asshole for sticking to your guns. And now, onto the update. This is a pretty short update. I got the suggestion a few times that I should talk to my landlord about the situation, since he may not be okay with the idea. While he was okay with the idea of kids, he already has a lot of tenants with kids, he was not okay with continuing the same arrangement with my roommate without me there. So there really is no point in me moving out, since my roommate would have to pay market rate rent for the place, which he can't afford. As of right now, my roommate's plans are to continue living here while he figures out some other arrangements. Once he does, he's going to move out, and I'm going to get a new roommate here. And now, onto the final update. I didn't think that I was going to make another update, but some stuff happened, and I kind of need a place to vent. You can go to my profile and read my previous posts if you don't know the story. I said in my last update that my roommate was going to continue to live here until he figured out some other arrangement that would work out for the 4 of them. I had passed on some of the helpful suggestions and sources that people had messaged me about. Upon further research, though, he realized it was still going to take time, and it would be faster for him to save up money for a deposit and first and last month's rent on a new place, and then get assistance once the kids were moved in. Honestly, I don't really get how it works. For those wondering why he doesn't have money saved up from living here, it's because he's using the money to pay off his student loans. So the plan was for him to hopefully have enough in 4 to 5 months. My roommate started to become more and more hostile though. First just passive-aggressive, but it led to a big blowout. Nothing physical, just yelling. He was really mad because he thought that since I have such a good relationship with our landlord, that I should have tried to convince him that he could handle the maintenance on his own. Honestly, he probably could. I know I can handle it on my own. I almost considered it too because I didn't think that I wanted to continue to live with him. After talking to my landlord about the situation again, we came to a new agreement. My landlord is going to be ending our lease. He gave us both official notice. I'm going to continue living here, but moving into another unit. It's a 1-bedroom and a bit smaller. But on the bright side, it was recently renovated, so it's nicer. I'm going to have to do the maintenance on my own from now on, but it's still a really great deal and worth it to not have to deal with roommate issues anymore. Thankfully, I'll be able to move into the new unit in just a few days because my old roommate was super pissed after he got the notice. He's used more than a few expletives when talking to me and says that I've ruined everything because now he won't be able to save money since he's going to have to start paying rent somewhere. To be honest, with how he's been, I've sort of lost sympathy for him. I do still feel bad for his sister's kids though. In the comments, Read Something says, "It's a good outcome. You can't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Something your former roommate may still need to learn. Best of luck to you all." Everyone agrees that it's sad for the children, but my reply to your original post is exactly what happened. It was your landlord's decision whether your roommate could kick you out and move the kids in, and he did not agree to it. Your roommate was obviously panicking, but he didn't think things through. Hopefully he will have assistance when he gets the kids, but he doesn't seem to be aware of the responsibility he is taking on. But good for you for standing up for yourself. I think OP was absolutely right to make the decisions that he did, but I'm still not unsympathetic to the situation that his roommate found himself in. The roommate should be working with the social worker to see what benefits he can obtain. It sounds like he's been tricked into an informal kinship care setup, which would remove the foster stipend. Who would have thought without context that the landlord ending the lease was a win-win for OP? I still do empathize for the roommate though. I'm wondering where in the US a landlord, even a shitty one, was able to end a lease and remove tenants without actual notice or eviction. They could be month to month, so just 30 days notice. You don't start eviction until they don't leave after the 30 days. I was feeling bad for the roommates until we learned they got a good deal for the rent because of OP. Roommate wants to keep the deal that OP made and evict OP from the apartment. I get that it was a decision in a rush, but dude. And then when it rightfully didn't happen, but OP still gave him plenty of resources to go for, roommate decided that being a little shit was his option. The situation is shitty, we get it, particularly for the poor kids, but it's not a reason to be an absolute dipshit to the person that helped you get a deal that saved you money. By acting like that, roommate just created another problem for himself. He could have stayed neutral and kept living in a cheap rent apartment until he had enough money, but no. He decided to be so unbearable that OP wanted to leave, which I think was his plan all along, but it didn't turn out how he expected it. All in all, the only people I feel bad about are the kids. Foster care doesn't seem like a pleasant walk, but I hope they have the chance to find people that care for them. Yeah, it's a bit of a bittersweet ending for this one, and it doesn't particularly, to me, sound like it's ending well for the kids. At the end of the day, OP is having the decision made for them by the landlord, so I don't think the roommate can particularly fault OP for this one. And yeah, I can absolutely see why the roommates made these decisions, why they became a passive-aggressive asshole, but it didn't have to end that way. You can be civil while still under stress and come to an amicable solution in these situations. But just to devolve into the toxic name-calling state that he got into and the stress that he was putting upon OP, I don't see that ever really ending well for him. Like, yes, there's a possibility that you bully someone out of leaving the apartment and the lease setup, But what if they don't? What if they stick to their guns? Doesn't really seem like they planned for anything but OP being bullied out of the apartment. And yeah, as others have said previous, OP, good job for standing up for yourself in this situation. I think that you did the right thing.